Shooter, big deer. I can't believe that just happened. The dead deer. He dropped right where we had him. Yes! Oh my gosh. Holy crap. The great Hambino right here.
Happy Tuesday, everybody. Today is February 28th, the last day of February 2023. Today's a good day. Today is Tuesday. It's the main show. We have another episode of One Giant Mistake. And today's episode is with Cameron Loving from Oklahoma. Finally, we're out of the state of Ohio. We're finally out of the state of Ohio. I know we've done one from Illinois, a couple from Ohio. I can't even remember what else.
It's just those two states. It's been Illinois and Ohio, I believe.
It's crazy,
no. Dan's is from Iowa.
Oh, Iowa. Yep. Dan did shipwreck from Iowa. But dude, I'm telling you, wow, just some big deer just hover around that Ohio time. You know, I hate their football team, but I'll take their deer all day.
Yeah. And hey, possible teaser alert, we may have another episode coming up that is it's not 243 inches, but it's the second biggest one so far.
Yeah.
And it comes from the state of Ohio.
Yeah, you'll get that on those bigger jobs, Yeah.
I mean, it's hard to think. I mean, you literally have to think that I think we're going to do. There's 4 or 5 of them will be from Ohio?
I think so. I'd have to go back and look. They're all blending together, man. And it's I don't know. There's a lot from Ohio, I will say that. So, but yeah, this is good. This series, I say it every week, it just gets better and better, then we did Bryce Dickinson's last week with a 243-inch deer. And a little teaser alert, the guy that actually shot that deer, and I didn't even tell you this, he reached out to me last week after he heard the episode and on Facebook, and he just DM'd me and sent me just the picture of him and the deer. And I'm like, dude, congratulations on that monster. And, it's just him gripping and grinning. But yeah, what a giant. The video that I put out of Bryce's video from in the beans, the deer doesn't even look real. That is an elite level deer. The genetics that you can get from a doe to the buck that bred her, it's just like, man, it's just that perfect combination, I guess. I don't know, but it's wild. What a story though.
Yeah. Too. Yeah, and if I was hunting in that area, and even though, say, like Bryce, yes, his story didn't end the way you would hoped it would. But guess what? Those genetics been around there for 4 or 5, maybe 6 years now. Where it's like, there's a deer out there that's carrying that same kind of potential.
Exactly. Yeah. And I've had a lot of people reach out to me. I'm trying to find one guy reached out to me last week, and after the episode comes out, and he's like, I don't want to say his name because I don't know if he wants it to be said or not, but something along the lines of like, if that would have happened to me, I would have jumped off a bridge or something like that. You know what I mean? And then he goes, he's like, I think he hit a twig or missed a 140. He's like, I missed a 140 last year, and I was an asshole to people for like 2 months.
Yeah.
I'm like, hey, it is what it is. The thing, when you get so ingrained in hunting like we are and just love it, it's literally a passion of that just never stops. Sometimes it just consumes your life, and it just takes it over. Like, look at us. Like, we talk about deer every day. We scout a lot. We do something around deer hunting every day of the year. It's wild.
Yep. Totally.
So, but I'm getting messages from guys. Like, there's this one guy, he's out in Colorado. and I love how the Western guys, they call whitetails whiteys out there.
Yeah.
And he's like, man, I love chasing mule deer, but like there's something cool about whiteys. And he's like, I love listening to your podcast. And this One Giant Mistake series is just like got me pumped up for fall. And I'm like, that's cool. So a lot of people are reaching out. I greatly appreciate that. Don't forget to go to iTunes and leave a 5-star rating and a written review on there just to kind of help us get up in the rankings. We're getting higher every week. It's greatly appreciated. But today's episode is going to be no different, man. Another big one and another giant mistake. It's crazy.
Yeah, and it's straight out of, what we kind of call the South, but like Aaron mentioned earlier, we take the series down to Oklahoma this week, and so we kind of get into break down how different the ground is and some of the caliber of whitetails that call it home down there, but it's totally different land than what we're actually used to. So it's really unique to hear how Cameron navigated trying to learn it, and then finding a deer. Once again, here we are, that magical number of 200, and then we're not going to tell too much of the story, but everything that leads up to that one giant mistake that happened to him.
Yeah, and I will preempt too that like once the buzz got around this deer, started making people go crazy kind of thing, and you'll hear at the end, it's kind of heartbreaking to hear like what could possibly happen to some things. And that's when things get really weird, and where I don't like it, and how big deer make people do stupid things and crazy things. And yeah, I love big deer just as much as the next guy, but man, it's not worth losing a friendship over. It's not worth, in my opinion, paying hundreds of thousands of dollars for. I want to be luck of the draw. If I'm able to kill that deer, then that's great. But if he's living 2 miles from me, I'm just not going to go invade somebody's territory and just, that's my deer. Like that's just not me,
Yep.
So that's where I'm at with it. But you guys will hear it in this podcast. So a couple things before we do get into it. I feel like my levels are high, but last week we talked about the website. So I'm going to reiterate the website, thefallpodcast.com. We're coming out with a new store, couple weeks away from launching it, new merchandise, all that stuff. So check that out. Please support it. I'm going to beg and plead because there's a lot of money wrapped up into it. And all I want to do is break even. To be honest with you, if I can make a little money, that'd be great. But that just goes right back into the podcast because you're going to start seeing more advertising. Like you're going to, not like in the podcast, but like we're trying to get the name out there in the podcast to grow so we can reach more people, get information out to more people, and in turn get all these awesome stories out. Like it's crazy, how big our crowd is right now. When we did this One Giant Mistake thing, like I've had 3 or 4 people reach out to me that aren't podcast listeners that have heard from somebody that knew somebody that listened to the podcast and they knew they had a good story. Now they're reaching out to me. So I'm like, the bigger we can get this audience, the more we can have these cool series on and these people telling these awesome stories. That's where I'm at with it. I want to get big. So
yeah, and as much as we love when guys are leaving reviews and everything, we greatly appreciate that. But we also appreciate when you guys are sharing these podcasts with your friends.
Yep.
Just telling people about them, like that helps us tremendously.
Yep, for sure. You nailed it right there. Also, YouTube. So we're putting these podcasts out on YouTube as well, video version. And if we do get supplied trail cam photos or videos, I will couple them with that. Other than that, you're just going to see us like this on Zoom, which is fine. We do have a select few people that do like to watch them. So it's just something new. And I think it's kind of neat too. It just creates a little bit more work, which I'm fine with. I'm not afraid of more work. It's just, something a little different, trying to offer some more things for people. So YouTube, yeah. And I guess the surprise, now today's Tuesday, we can finally get this, build up to this surprise. And maybe it's not a surprise for all you guys, but it's pretty cool for me. So I've accepted a new job, a new full-time job, and it is with Latitude Outdoors. So it's been kind of a long time coming kind of thing. It's been in conversations for a while, and it's something that like for the last 11 years I've traveled all over the world filming and editing and stuff like that, which I still love, but the travel is getting very hard for me. I got a 5-year-old daughter that is getting more and more active with everything, sports and dance, and don't want to miss anything. So I still want to film and edit, which I will be doing with Latitude, but it just won't be like the main focus that I'll be focused on. It's going to be more of like a content coordinator working with Corey Godar, that is the marketing manager or marketing director and everything, and just kind of doing a lot of things marketing for Latitude. I will be editing some things, but yeah, I'm excited, man. It's finally, I actually start tomorrow. Tomorrow's my first day.
Make sure
So,
make sure to pack your lunch, buddy.
yep, pack it, and it's it's gonna be fun. You as well, because you kind of work with Latitude as well from a content perspective and just kind of a field staff, pro staff kind of deal. And we've got to know these guys hand in hand for the last year and a half. And actually, I met Alex probably two and a half years ago, and that's kind of where that first started. But that was more of like a partnership deal, and then it just kind of culminated into this, and here we are. I mean, it couldn't ask for three. I'm gonna say three better guys, but like you also got Derek and Corey and Jake Bush and Joey P. So we're all like kind of underneath the same balloon now, full time, and powerhouse team, man. I cannot wait. But working with those guys, it's going to be sky's the limit, and we're gonna turn some heads for sure.
Yeah, I'm really excited for you, buddy. And looking from like a 10,000-foot view, you could kind of see this in the makings for a while, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I'm also excited for Latitude also because I really, really like those guys over there. I mean, I outside of even hunting, I think they are top-notch human beings. And then you joining them, I think it's a perfect relationship there. So I'm happy for you and I'm happy for them because each side of the party is going to be benefiting big time, in my opinion.
I agree, man, and I appreciate that. I appreciate that wholeheartedly. And not only to mention that, like, they're great guys, but their products are second to none. And I said that way before I even worked with them. Like, they just have a mind of, innovating awesome products and checking all the boxes, in my opinion, and making mobile hunting more fun and making yourself more efficient also, like in lightweight. And man, it's just the sky's the limit, and there's some possibly some things in the works there too that might even turn some more heads. So I'm excited about that. But tomorrow's first day, pack my lunch, tie my shoes tight, and don't get into a fight, Billy Madison,
Yes, sir.
you guys don't
Yes,
watch
sir.
movies, you got to watch movies. So
Just be. I hope Alyssa's taking pictures of you standing at the end of the driveway, waiting to get picked up.
just like, boop, just, got my lunch packed tight.
Everyone's gonna see Aaron tomorrow. You know how like kids nowadays they hold the signs of like their favorite things are, and the first day of school. Like
Oh yeah,
that's gonna be you tomorrow. You tomorrow headed off to
100%.
work.
100%. Yeah. So there it is. Cat's out of the bag. But it's not going to change anything with the fall podcast. It's actually going to help it more. Those guys are fully on board and behind what the fall podcast represents and what we're trying to do. And that was another deciding factor of like going with those guys too, is like, I still want to be able to do this, with a lot of attention on it, still do a lot of things. And they're like, hey, where can we help grow? And I'm like, let's go, so
Yep.
that's huge. So
Yeah, and I tell you, getting to know those guys for me, it's kind of just been over the last year that I can honestly say with like each of them have their own special role and their own mindset where it's like honestly the sky's the limit for Latitude with wherever and whatever they want to do over there.
Yep, for sure. Agreed, man. Let's do some partners real quick, and then we're going to do a question and get right into this interview with Cameron. So, Helix Broadheads, use the code FALLHX10 at helixbroadheads.com to get your new single bevel, whether you want an FJ4 with the bleeders or an FJ2 with no bleeders. Go check those out. America's Best Bowstrings. You get $10 off by using the code THEFALL at America's Best Bowstrings. You got Platinum Series, you got Premium, and you got Pursuit. You can customize any colors you want. Get in there, put your bow in. Literally, I think the string builder, you put your branded bow in. What? I can't even remember now. I just did it the other day. The brand of bow, what colors you want, what twist you want. If you want speckled, heat shrink, what color you want there. And check the Pursuit Platinum or Premium Series. Get those coming. Use that code THEFALL at checkout. Latitude Outdoors, use the code THEFALLPODCAST, all one word, lowercase, to save 25% off on anything but the platforms and but the Method 2 and but the sticks. You can get the Classic 2 and you can get everything else. So use that code and save some money there. Method Archery, Fall 10 for some new arrows. Get those coming because you want to start shooting for tack. Maybe you got indoor leagues going on right now, possibly, or you just want to shoot and get ready. Method Archery, go there and use the code fall 10. Sorry, I got so many codes over here I'm looking at. Exodus Trail Cams, ExodusOutdoorGear.com. They have, in my opinion, the best warranty. It's a 5-year warranty. They just dropped the Rival Trail Cam, their new cell cam. That's a budget-friendly camera, $179.99. And this thing's a lean and mean little machine, and it's pretty neat. Or you can just go with the render as well with the SP18 bundle, with the SP18 as the solar panel, and that will couple with the render or the Rival. You can use it for both. So check them out at ExodusOutdoorGear.com. And lastly, Garmin bow sights. So Garmin said it a lot. Whether you want their watches or their bow sights, they are top notch, in my opinion, in both categories. So go to Garmin.com and check those out. So I think I got everything there. Let's hit the question. You went first last week. I'm going to go first this time.
Okay.
Okay. If you could only hunt one way for the rest of your life, what would it be? That is either from an elevated position, a still hunt on the ground where you don't move, you just, this is your spot, or spot and stalk. 3 different ways. If you can only do it one way the rest of your life, what would it be?
Ooh, man, I'm gonna have to I'm gonna take the elevated position just because all of them are deadly, but the one I know best would be the elevated position. And if I have to, kind of ride or die for the rest of my life to one specific way, I'm taking the elevated position.
Yep, I couldn't agree more. I don't have to elaborate anymore on that. It is fun to spot and stalk deer, but for just think about it, for the rest of your life, every time you go out, you have to do that one thing. I'm going to do elevated as well. Yep. But think about this. If you walk out there, let's say you're walking to get your elevated position and there's a big deer there, you can spot and stalk. You can't go after them. That's the thing. So you gotta scurry up a tree,
Yeah. Hey, think about it this way, Aaron. You and I both killed deer off the ground like that this year.
And I killed one last year off the ground.
Yeah. Yep.
So
yep.
Yeah. I know that would take 3 deer away from me in the last 2 years. No, two deer. Sorry, 2.
My deer this year, I would have just tried to climb up on a stump. Like, okay, that's fine.
Or just go full draw and then jump and then shoot as you just jump.
Yeah. All right. So my question for you, in your opinion, over the years, do you believe that trail cameras have saved more deer or killed more deer? Just in the hunting in general, across the board for anyone, because there's guys out there that are really efficient with trail cameras. There's guys out there that they make, quote unquote, all the mistakes of checking trail cameras. So do you think that more deer have been saved from trail cameras or more deer have been killed because of them?
This is like that question, is there more doors in the world or cars? You know what I mean? It's like one of those kind of questions. Honestly, I think trail cams have saved more deer. And the reason being is because think about how many times have you got a trail cam picture, just you in general, and you've killed that deer? I've only done it once or twice. Okay. I've done it twice. twice. In 22 years of hunting, I'd probably have to go back and think of that. But right off the rip, it's not more than 3, I could tell you that. But I know of 2 instances where I've actually got a picture. There's one deer right here. I got a picture of him on August 18th, and then 2 months to the day I killed him in October. But yeah, only 2 deer, I think.
Okay.
Yeah. So how many have you killed because of a camera?
Because of a camera,
because you knew of them, right? That's what you mean. That's like your question, right? Like, how many? So like, if you get a picture of the deer, no matter what time of the year it is, and you end up killing that deer, I would say that camera helped. Well, maybe not. I don't know, man.
See. Okay, so this is why I asked the question. I believe that trail cameras have saved more deer than they've killed more deer. There's a couple different reasons. First and foremost, with trail cameras being out there, let's just say someone's not running them and a deer comes in and they're like, oh yeah, he looks pretty nice, I'd shoot him. But with the trail camera, he may know of something bigger. So there's automatically some more deer being saved because of, in his mind, in the hunter's mind, that there's a bigger 10 point out here. I'm not going to shoot the 8 point. But more than that, what I actually think is just the amount of the presence, like people checking them too often, like, just being out there in the woods too much, or just, living and dying by a trail camera picture and location that in my opinion, I think that they've saved more deer than they've killed.
Yeah.
That's just me though.
Okay. So I was thinking of that question a little bit differently. I have never killed a deer. What do you need, honey? Oh, yeah. You want music? Yeah, there you go. I have never killed a deer. Sorry, everybody. My daughter just keeps, we're home all day today because no school. So she just keeps coming in. I have never killed a deer because of a trail cam helped me kill a deer. Like, got a picture of them, ran out there and killed them. Never have done that. Now, I have killed deer, what I was talking about earlier. I've got a picture of a deer before and then killed him sometime during the season.
Sure.
That's what I was talking about. So, yeah, I think cameras save more deer than kill deer.
Yeah. It's a tough question, right? Because it's like, okay, like how exactly are you asking it? So I could get that, in the beginning where you're like, okay, wait a second, like, are they helping me kill deer or whatnot? But I just think, I get it. Like the early days of me ever running a trail camera, like I couldn't stay out of there. I couldn't help but not check it. I'd get stuck on locations just because I got one picture there where it's like, it was hurting me probably more than it was helping me. Maybe that's more of what I'm trying to say.
Yep. No, that's a good question. I just had a little confusion there. So yeah, definitely. If you guys want to hear more of these questions or something like this, please send them in. We'll kind of give you our opinion on them. And if you want us to drop your name, we can do that as well. Because I'd love to get to the point where you guys are just submitting questions to us because that just makes it easier on us. So
yeah, that's a great idea. I like that.
Yeah. So either DM me, DM David, anything like that, and just kind of give us your questions. If you don't want us to say your name, tell us that. Or if you do, hey, we'll give you a shout out for sure. So guys, thank you very much. We're going to cut this loose to get to this interview with Cameron. Cameron takes it from the top right here. He jumps right in and takes charge like a good guest should. And but you're going to hear him right off the rip. So thank you guys very much. Go to iTunes, leave a 5-star rating, leave a written review, go to Spotify and leave a 5-star rating there as well. So thank you guys very much. And here's this interview with Cameron.
Well, my name is Cameron Loving. I was born and raised in the state of Oklahoma. Been here most of my life. I do a lot of hunting across the entire state. I try to hit just about everything I can. So a lot of different, hunting, a lot of different types of hunting. Other than that, that about sums it up. I do dirt work for a living, run heavy equipment.
Okay. How old are you?
26.
26. Okay. You're still wet behind the ears still, man.
Yeah, just a little bit.
Yeah. So grew up in Oklahoma. What part of Oklahoma would you say? Don't have to say a town if you don't want to. I'm just
you're fine. I grew up in Southwest Oklahoma.
Okay.
Down the corner.
Okay. Now, I've been to northern Oklahoma and that's about it. And it was only to go to a convenience store really. So kind of give us a lay of the terrain what you're looking at like down there where you grew up? Is it just, a lot of the stuff you watch on TV and everything like looks a lot like Texas in a way, but what's the terrain like down there?
Well, as you move across the entire state, Oklahoma has a bunch of different types of terrain, but down there in the southwest corner, you're not going to see a tree bigger than a baseball bat. I mean, it is flat ground, mesquite patches, and a lot of crop fields. Just hunting really small, minute terrain features and mesquite patches. So,
when you say crop fields, what are they planting down in that area?
Pretty much strictly wheat. We get some peanuts from time to time. Wheat and cotton is mainly all that you see.
Yeah, but now, like when you say the peanut fields, now will the deer mess with those?
Oh yeah. Oh, you
really?
Yeah. I haven't hunted near a peanut field in a really long time, and I really haven't done it a whole lot in general. But there's some public access that I get to that's around a couple of peanut fields that there's some good deer running around. I mean, those deer eat it up. I mean,
yeah,
whatever they can get, if they can't have one, they'll have the other. But it's definitely different down there.
What do they like about the peanuts? Do you know? I mean, is it like is a peanut? And this is me not knowing a damn thing about it. Like, do they have like a green leaf when they're leafing out, or is it just I don't know? Like, kind of like me on that.
See, I haven't hunted them as much as I'd like to, but it seems like whenever I'm around anything, they get on the green and they'll eat the nut too, but mostly we just catch them coming out of the fields and back into bedding, back into the timber. But they'll eat on it as soon as it comes up all the way till they go to harvest. But mostly we find ourselves hunting wheat fields, bedding area, food on wheat. The last 4 or 5 years, I've moved up closer to central Oklahoma, and I've kind of tried. It's been a tough time trying to transition from hunting, open prairie to hunting a little bit more hardwoods. You know what I mean? It's been a tough learning scale, but I'm kind of starting to get a grasp of a lot of things, and things are kind of starting to fall together for me. So
nice. Yeah. Now, Cameron, it's going to be cool for the listeners because along this series of One Giant Mistake, it's been a lot of the Midwest, and not only the Midwest, it's kind of been 2 particular states, honestly. So yeah, it's going to be fun taking this story kind of down south a little bit. And people talk about Oklahoma here and there, but we really don't hear about it that often. So, one of the questions I think about right off the top of my head is that outside of the deer we're going to talk about today, what is if someone was coming down in Oklahoma to hunt, like what is kind of like a realistic goal, as in the quote unquote antler size for a whitetail down there?
I don't really want to talk it up too much, but it's 120s. It's very hard not to get on, a decent piece of ground and find a really good deer. I try my best to hunt age, but 140, 150 inch deer, you're going to have one on camera. But, you put a camera up in Oklahoma, you'll find one.
Okay.
They're not around every tree. Every so often you get one that bumps up into the 60s and the 70s, and it's really hard to find a giant deer in the state of Oklahoma, but they do exist.
Yep.
Excuse me.
Now, how often are you kind of tracking some of these bucks from year to year down there? When you talk about some of that open ground, are those whitetails like really dispersing quite a bit year in and year out, or are you kind of keeping real close tabs every year on particular bucks?
It kind of differs from property to property. We hunt a lot of creek lines that are surrounded by wheat fields, and so it's the only cover. But those deer, they travel quite a bit. We see them around the same time every year. They don't differ. They don't come, out of pattern very often. Down there, up here where it gets a little thicker, things are pretty consistent. But down there, those deer, they'll find a creek line and they'll move up and down it for 10, 15 miles. And that's just their pattern. They'll stick on it. And so we get a lot of movement down that way. But, up here where I'm hunting now, it's been a big terrain shift for me. this property that this particular deer was on is unlike anything I've ever hunted. I mean, there's 170 foot of elevation change across it. I mean, it's up and down hills, sheer rock faces, just unlike anything I've ever been a part of.
How big is the farm?
It is just under 400 acres.
Okay. Now you say there's a lot of train changes. Is it throughout the whole property, or is it broke up pretty good? You got some flat areas in there with some ag, or is it like, how is it lay out with trees, timber, and ag? Like, what's the ratio there?
You know, if I had to put it into a ratio, there's probably a 60-40, you know, timber to open ground.
Okay.
There's some meadows in there, some CRP, you know, goes right in between, you know, big ridges. And, you know, there's a 20-foot red rock wall that runs down the middle of this property. I mean, 20-foot sheer face.
Damn.
And I always try to, whenever I'm telling my friends about this, you know, I'd say, hey, he was above the wall, because there's so many places they can get down from that wall. You know,
Yeah.
I him above the wall today. Oh, well, he's down in the bottom now. You know, there's ridges. There's 3 main ridges that run right down the middle, you know, parallel to that red rock wall. And man, it's impressive. It's had my number the last 2 years. It's been really tough to kind of figure it out, but you know, we're kind of starting to get a grasp of it. So
is this public land or is this private land?
no, this is private land. So I just lost a hunting property the year before I got permission to this place. I've been hunting a lot of public land, but Aaron, you'll probably like this. So I was hunting a 2-acre piece behind a wall.
And behind a Walmart? Did you say Walmart?
Yeah.
Oh God, oh God.
I'll have to send you pictures of this deer. I was hunting like a high 140s, low 150s 8-point behind a Walmart on 2 acres. And could never get it done. Long story short, the guy that owned the property moved to Japan. I lost it. So I'm sitting at work, right? And I'm sitting on a track hoe on my phone. My boss pulls up and he calls me. He goes, "Get off your phone. Stop talking to your girlfriend. Get off your phone." And I'm like, "Listen, man, I'm not talking to my girlfriend. I just lost the hunting property, and I'm on Onyx looking across the river trying to figure out who owns this piece over here with all this corn on it." And he's like, "If you'll put your phone up, I'll let you hunt my place."
Oh,
say less, buddy. I'm in. You know,
I would have went like this.
Yeah, you can have the phone. Just let me walk on the place. You know, check it out. So long story short, I get permission to hunt my boss's place. And, you know, it's the place that we've been talking about. The place with all this ups and downs, topography, all this stuff I've never even, you know, set foot on. It's awful different from what I'm used to. I went to Kentucky a couple of years ago, and that's the only thing that I've really been able to kind of equate to this property lays out, just ups and downs, hills all over the place. And
yeah, that's unique because, you know, like what David said earlier, I'm glad we're branching out of Ohio. It seems like, like, because, you know, a lot of these one giant mistake stories, I mean, we had one from Illinois and majority of them are Ohio and kind of the Midwestern states. I'm excited to hear something about the South. And honestly, the thing that's rolling through my head with all these terrain changes is like, how's the wind? How does your wind affect everything? If you've got basically 3 ridges in this big rock wall that run this whole property, like how challenging can that be?
It's about as hard as it could get, because the way this property is, you can only enter from the north. There's no way to get to it from any other way. You drive up to his place, his house, and you have to cross a creek. You can branch out to the east or the west to try and get around something, but for the most part, you got to access from the north. The ups and the downs and the thermal pools, the thermal hubs, all of that, it has become a minefield for me. And, you know, I kind of just accepted that whenever I'm going into this place, I'm going to bust deer. That's just matter of fact. Like, I can try and get around where I think he's at and hope that I don't, you know, mess it up. But that's how it is. You're going to bust deer. But, you know, at some point, you just got to get in there and figure it out, you know, so.
Yep. I mean, you're literally dealing with a 20-foot face, just rock cliff running down the damn thing. I've
been on hunts where I've tucked up underneath that thing and had no wind, and it was perfect. But if they're not coming down from the wall, you're not going to see them. You know what I mean?
That's wild.
Cameron buys a saddle just to be able to hang from the cliff like a rock climbing guy.
Yeah.
Just rappel off the wall.
That's a new way to one stick right there.
Yeah. No kidding.
It is, with that wall, like you just said, you can tuck up next to it and kind of get out of the wind. Have you found some areas, that are kind of bulletproof in a way? Like,
Oh yeah.
You get some of those areas in some hill country where, the prevailing wind might be a northwest, but when you get into the spot, it's coming out of the northwest, but it's actually shooting like straight south or straight, southwest. Like, I refer back to my Ohio deer last year. That was that way. I had a prevailing wind out of the northwest, but when it hit me and it kind of the terrain kind of made a jog and it took a 90-degree and it went down to the south. And honestly, the deer that I shot ended up coming from the southeast. Like he should have probably smelt me, but did you find any bulletproof, like little areas, little pockets like that you can kind of hunker in?
Yeah, think the ones that come to mind, there's a few of them on the place to where, if you catch a northeast wind, it'll suck right down that creek and out and away from the bedding area, and you can get pretty much bulletproof up against that wall.
Mm-hmm.
The problem that I ran into is those deer are going to be on one side of the property or the other, and not very often did you catch them right in the middle. They were either on top of the wall or on the other third. If you split it into thirds, the rock wall is 1/3 down the middle, and then 2/3 is the bottom, and the top is 1/3. They were either up here on this other ridge or up above it, or they were crossing from that up the wall. So, those hunts, I didn't throw a whole lot to the wall. I tried to focus, more out and away from it, because I can see to the wall from where I would be hunting most of the time. I can figure out when they're moving across the wall. But I did find, now that I think about it, 3 sets where the wind was either sucking over the wall or sucking down a creek, and got in some pretty good hunts this year, to be honest with you.
What's your prevailing wind usually where you're at?
It's a northwest.
Usually? Okay, I got you. Because it definitely varies from, you hear some guys in different regions where it's like, oh, we get a, southwest prevailing wind or a south or something. Like, man, I've only grown up with a prevailing wind out of the northwest. So it's like,
we'll catch some oddball south winds here and there, but not,
sure.
If it'll be a week straight, but that's it. It's usually northwest. So
for sure.
Yeah. That's
kind of awful hard when you're accessing from the north, but
that's what I was gonna say. That just makes that property even a little bit tougher with just that north access to it. But hearing you talk about this property, Cameron, and kind of the difficulties and having to really learn it. There's going to be a day I truly believe that you're going to look back at this property and really see how much like this has helped you grow as a hunter, and everything has taught you. Like a property like this will make you a better hunter in the long run, I think.
Yeah.
I completely agree. Even just the last 2 years that I've been able to hunt the place, I've grown as a hunter so much, and not just the deer that I was after, but some of the situations I put myself in. 3 or 4 years ago, I was hunting flat ground. I had no idea what thermals were. I'd heard people talk about them, quite often, but I've never been in that situation. The wind's going to blow what it's going to blow down there when it's flat,
Man, the thermal game, we talked briefly about Andy May in the podcast that you said you're halfway through it. And I made a comment in there of like, in order to get good at something, you got to go do it. Like it's hard to practice things for hunting scenarios or different tactics. To me, thermals are the same way. I have yet to see, like, you hear all these guys and these high-end elite hunters talking about thermals and what they do in situations like this, but man, you don't know until you get in the area and try it. Like I could take something, a carbon copy of what somebody might say, and they're like, this is what it's going to do there. I go there and it does something different. Like you just don't know. Yeah. Like you have to just throw yourself to the wolves and just kind of figure it out on the fly, which kind of sucks, but us as hunters are always looking for the A plus B equals big buck. You know what I mean? And it's not there. It's not. And that's what's cool about it though. So definitely like I could see David or I coming down to this farm and just like falling flat on our face because we might think, this what could be a thermal hub and what you tell us what it does, it could be totally different, or it could be, you just don't know. You don't know. And I don't know. That's what's cool about it. And I think looking at like the 30,000 foot view of what you've talked about already, you only have one access to the farm, which right off the rip makes it very difficult, very difficult. Now, did you ever try to get access from any other direction on this farm? Any neighbors, see if they'd let you, come in from a different way, or was that just not in the cards?
Yeah, so I contacted a few neighbors around there. You guys probably know the type, but I mean, it's a lot of old rifle hunters that really, they're old farmers and they get out, but they don't want to really let anybody walk through their place because they know what's running around.
Oh
yeah. I got a hold of this one guy one time, and his place is directly to the south of me, and that butts up to a highway. And I told him, hey man, listen, I do dirt work. I'll build you a pond, whatever I got to do. If you'll just let me come through your place. Like I just need to get in from the south. And he's like, no can do, buddy. It's not going to. And so, that was definitely a rough handicap to kind of start off with. But, as the years went on, I just understood that the longer hike is going to be beneficial in the long run. You're going to have to get out and do some things.
Mm-hmm.
The whole thermal deal is just, you got to throw yourself in the fire. Like you said, throw yourself to the wolves. You're never going to know until you get in there. My biggest hurdle as a hunter was, how do you put yourself in those situations you're not so sure about when you're after a deer of this caliber? You want to be aggressive, but you don't want to be too aggressive, especially when you're not so sure about what you're doing. Yeah. I just learned so much from this deer and this property. It's unreal. So
can you guys bait in Oklahoma?
We can. Yep.
Okay. So that, was that an option? Were you doing that, or was it, I'm sure like if you can do it, why not do it? You know what I mean? And try. And so how did that play into some things?
So whenever I first would, become aware of this deer, that's, I got permission to the property. I went out, me and my brother, and mind you, this is up and down. There's no way to get across this thing but walk it. We loaded up a bunch of sacks of corn on a, snow sled and tried to drag it up and down these hills with a four-wheeler. Got all the way to the back of this place. And in the back corner of this place, there's a bowl. If you imagine like a flat meadow, and then you just set a salad bowl right on top of it. And it goes up and then bowls back out to the bottom. I was like, you know what? If there's any deer coming up through this bowl and trickling down to this ridge, this is where they'll be coming through. So I lay the corn pile out right there. And I get pictures of, and this is early. This is July. And
now, what year is this?
This is 2021.
Okay. And then before we get too far into it here, did you name the deer?
I did. So I got pictures of a deer that had double row tines on his G3s, I believe. G3s or G4s. Anyway, double row tines on both sides, and it looked like peace signs.
Okay.
And so I called the deer Deuce.
Okay.
But, I mean, even in July, this deer's antler growth was ridiculous. You know what I mean? It's just
okay.
Way farther ahead than I thought.
Yeah, well, let's back up a couple steps here. So we broke down the property. There's one other thing I want to know about the property. What kind of timber are we looking at on it? Because you talked about in the Southwest, it's a lot of mesquite flats, not a lot of timber. On this, is it like hardwoods? Are we looking at hardwoods, maples, like, Midwest kind of stuff? Because I know you've been to Kansas. Yeah. So is that looking like, Kansas kind of timber stuff?
Exactly. I mean, if you were to it's Kansas and put it in a bunch of hills, that's exactly what it is. It's white oaks. It's mostly hardwoods. There's plum thickets, kind of interchangeable throughout the meadows, which I find a lot of deer like to bed in those plum thickets, but mostly it's hardwoods. stuff that I'm not used to. There's white oaks, there's walnut trees on this place actually, all kinds of things. But
Okay. Yep. So you are on some equipment, looking at your phone constantly, and one day your boss is like, "What are you doing? Get off your phone. You can hunt my farm if you." This is how this came about then, right? Like you're looking to shoot this deer behind Wally World on 2 acres, and your boss is like, "No, you can hunt my farm. Just get off the phone." Now, is he a hunter?
no, he's not. I mean,
Oh my God, this is like heaven
when he
on earth.
told me that, he could have handed me the keys to Graceland. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
400 acres in hill country, something new. I'm a mobile hunter. I don't have any pre-hung sits on this place. I stick and move the whole time.
Yeah.
Back to the corn. I had one feeder on this place. I ran it, in the summer months, and then I ran it in late season. I'm trying to get away from that. That's how I grew up. I grew up hunting deer over corn. Nothing against that. I like hunting deer over corn, but I want to kill a deer where he's moving from, where he's coming, where he's going. I want to beat this deer. It's a chess match for me now.
Yep, for sure. So
now, Cameron, when your boss came to you that day, before that, did you know that he owned that kind of acreage?
I did, and everybody, there's 5 or 6 guys that I work with that are big hunters, and every time that his place has ever been brought up, I'd heard, oh, he has shot everybody down with a vengeance. There's nobody's getting on his place. There's not a chance in the world, not a snowball's chance in hell that you're getting on this place. So I'm like, why bother? Why ask this guy whenever he's just going to run me into the dirt over it anyway? So I just let it go. I never even thought, ask him about it. So
all you got to do is just look at your phone a whole bunch and just,
When he told me, that's the first thing I did was, at lunch, I went and got on Onyx and was searching his name on Onyx and found the property within seconds, and was just blown away. I was like, I don't even know what this is. Like, what are topo lines? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
learning curve.
You can't ask for a better situation. I mean, we all know everything we go through to find a new property, all the links, all the knocking on doors, all that stuff. So to be kind of, handed one, man, whatever you were doing that time in your life for karma, it was paying off. But one question I was thinking before we dive right into, Deuce, or I believe his name is what time of year was that when your boss granted you permission to that piece?
It had to have been early June because it was right. And I mean, as soon as I got permission, I hopped on it, man. I was out there checking it out.
Yep. So but now it's summertime. So there's no really postseason scouting there. It's summertime, everything's green. I mean, it's hot down there. But also in June means there's some antler growth going on too.
Right.
Yeah, and I think you played it perfect. I would have done the same thing. If I get a piece of ground and I can bait, I'm going and throwing corn piles everywhere to figure out what I got. Like literally just to get inventory. And I'm guessing by what you were saying, that's what you did, right?
Yeah, I just wanted to get an idea of what was going on out there. I mean, I'm taking into account, what age class of bucks I got running around is number one. Especially a property I just got permission on, I'm not going to go in and shoot just any deer. I could burn this place and hunt public for 2 years waiting on a deer to grow up if I needed to. As much as I know, I'm going to have this property for a long time is what it sounds like. I'm pretty good friends with my boss. We're pretty close.
Okay.
And I just wanted to get an idea of what's going on. I didn't necessarily want to hunt over corn, but I had to get some way or another to get something coming in to where I could get pictures and take an inventory of what was running around. So
for sure. How many bucks can you guys kill in Oklahoma?
Two.
Okay, so can you kill them both with a bow or both?
Yeah, you can. You can kill both with a bow, but not both with a rifle.
Okay, now was there any more stipulations did your boss put any stipulations on you, like you and you only, or any family member or anything like that?
He told me and my fiance were the only 2 people that can hunt this place.
Okay. All right. I like that. Gosh. And it's 400 acres, didn't you say?
Yeah. 400 acres.
I mean, if you need anybody else to come down and just manage the herd, like send a brother a longitude and latitude. All right.
Yeah. Hey, I actually, something there just said, triggered something in my mind. Has this property been hunted at all in like X amount of years?
Not in the last 15 years before
I saw the mustache fumble a little bit there when you were thinking about that.
He would go out and walk the ridges. He'd shoot a pig here and there. There's a lot of pigs on this farm. He'd go out and shoot a pig or call a coyote, but nobody's hunted deer on this place for the last 15
Oh
years.
my gosh, dude.
Never seen a
gold mine.
You literally, he just threw a solid gold plated shitter in your freaking hands and said, "Here, have at her, buddy." Oh my gosh.
Handed me the keys to heaven.
Yeah.
Oh, you should call this place heaven. No, it's Iowa, if you know that movie.
It's actually in Iowa. If anybody's wanting to know, it was in Iowa.
Is it in Iowa? Okay. All right, got it. Perfect.
Oh yeah.
Or
the story actually take place in the heart of the Midwest.
Or Maine, up in the greater Northeast,
That's right. Tell them.
Okay, so we're laying corn out right now. You and your brother, it sounds like you're hauling corn out in June and July, getting some cameras out. Now, how many corn stations did you deploy and what was the camera situation? How many cameras did you put out?
When I initially got on the property, I put 3 cameras out, but I was running 2 different bait sites. I had one over in that corner in that bowl that we previously talked about, and one on a transition line coming down from the top of the wall, trying to figure out coming and going and what was going on down there. So, but I did have 3 cameras running on the place when I first got on it.
Okay. Now, when you were looking at it online or on X or whatever, were there a couple areas that really stuck out just from what you knew from an e-scouting situation or something that looked good? Did anything look good? Like, I really got to get my finger on this here.
I picked out a couple of saddles and, whenever really, sat down and pulled it up on the computer, found a couple of benches that I wanted to go check out, what you would assume is a bench, as far as topo lines go. But, kind of just tried to narrow down the productivity of my scouting sessions. You know what I mean? I sat down and made notes on what I wanted to get eyes on. I had the corn set, had the cameras out, let those roll, let them do their job. But I got to get eyes on where I'm wanting to hunt,
Sure.
Regardless of what's around.
Well, and two, even though it's hotter than the hinges of Haiti probably at this time, you kind of got to suck it up and just walk it. You got to figure out where the areas are at. There might still be, like you said, there's a creek there. Maybe there's some crossings or something you can hone in on, some historical rubs, anything. Now, did you start walking it? And if you did, did you find anything that was like, man, this is going to be a good spot?
I found and saw more sign in deer than I knew what to do with. I mean, it was from hunting a lot of public land, being really far from all the farms back home that I used to hunt all the time. I was hunting a lot of public land, from seeing, not a whole lot of sign to just seeing it blink bright red going, hunt right here, hunt right here.
Mm-hmm.
The hard part was trying to differentiate the hot sign from the really hot sign from the really hot sign, because it was just all over. This place is saturated.
Yeah.
And so, this place, walking this place and scouting this place, you've really got to kind of grid yourself out, because it's 400 acres, but it hunts like 800 to 1,000 acre piece, because it's up and down like crazy. So you really got to commit yourself to getting out there and figuring some things out. So,
yeah.
Yeah. No. Now, when you talk about the hot sign, with it being in the middle of the summertime, are you just kind of strictly looking at some of the tracks and some of the trails that you're seeing on some of the, food or water, or are you actually seeing some like, dude, look at these rubs, or look at these, you can kind of tell they were old scrapes from the previous fall?
So I'm picking up, movement from summertime feeding patterns to bed to water. Obviously, we get awful hot down here in Oklahoma. I mean, some of these days that I'm scouting, they're over 100 degrees. I'm picking out where the deer are now, but I'm also seeing, historical rubs. I found one hot community scrape that you could definitely tell they were still walking by it. There was tracks in it. Wasn't super hot, but come to find out later on down the year, it fired right back up. And from going from what I'd previously been hunting to where I'm at now, trying to differentiate where to pinpoint all this is just, I had to sit down and say, okay, we're going to have to break this down incrementally and figure out piece by piece and learn on the fly, because this is just something I'd never really experienced before. I'd hunted deer on wheat field and corn feeders, to and from.
Yeah. Yeah. So did this property actually hold some nice water sources for you?
So there's a spring-fed creek that runs right up against that red rock wall.
Oh.
And, given my boss being in the dirt business, he owns a track hoe and a dozer on the side. He built 3 ponds, in a line down that creek. So there's 3 ponds up against that red rock wall that actually hold water and trickle down into each other and exit the property with the spring-fed creek.
Oh, that's cool.
It's pretty neat, man. It's a beautiful place. If I had $1 million, I'd but just not working out for me right now.
Yeah.
I'll tell your boss you need a raise then. It's just that easy.
It's in the works, buddy.
I mean, you just got to think about the situation here. You're talking a property no one's touched 15 years, 400 acres. He doesn't hunt it, but he's just out there manicuring the shit out of the place.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he went through and plucked the trees with the track hoe and made these pretty meadows and left, fingers of timber. And I mean, I ought to show you guys this place on the map. You just drool. I mean, it's amazing.
Just get us to come down this fall. We'll come down check it out this fall.
You might want to think about talking to him about maybe adopting it or something like that.
Yeah,
I'm telling you, he don't got to call me son or nothing. let me and the fiance move in for a couple years or something.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
So we're in the heart of the summer. You walked it. You got trail cams out. You got corn stations out to get inventory. Are the cameras you're using, are they cell cams or are they regular just SD cameras?
I'm running 2 cell cameras and 1 carpool. So
okay. So I mean, how long did it take for deer to start pinging in on your phone? And I mean, let's get the elephant out of the room. When Deuce show up?
He showed up 2 days after we put the corn out, and
oh my gosh, if it couldn't get any better.
Yeah.
Well, we put the corn out for my brother this year, and that 178 that he showed up 2 hours after he walked out of the place. I mean, sometimes they just fall in your lap, but killing them's not so easy. But no, he showed up after we put the corn out. This deer, for mid to late June, I mean, this deer, he already had quite a bit of growth on him. I mean, he was already looking like, he looked like a mature deer, but he was already kind of starting to formulate some mass and starting to branch out awful quick. So
yeah, when you those first pictures that you got of him of June, I mean, were you when you open up that phone and see did you kind of have that thought of, hey, there might be that kind of caliber of deer in this neighborhood, or was it just like, holy shit, look at this thing?
Okay, so I had 1 cell camera on 1 corn station, a card pull on a creek transition. Okay, I just remember now. Okay, I had 2 card pulls and 1 cell camera. That's right. So I had 1 card pull on the corn station over by the wall, and the one that I picked Deuce up on was a card pull. My brother went back with me to check this camera. So we're on.
How many days did you wait after you pull or put the cameras out to go get them?
I think 3.5 weeks.
Holy crap! I would have went out 3 days after.
Well, this property is a little over an hour from my house. So,
okay.
And
that makes it a little easier.
Yeah, I did my best to stay out of there. But, me and my brother go back and we check the camera. And we're standing there, in that bowl. And we've got the card reader in the phone. And the sun's beating down, so we're kind of tucked underneath the tree trying to read it,
Oh, been there.
And all of a sudden, this picture flashes up. And we go, holy shit. That deer's going to be somebody. And that was when it was all born, I said, we're going to call him Deuce. He's got peace signs on his head, and I'm going to kill that sucker.
So he had already had splits in late June.
Late June. He had, nubs. He had nubs on most of his tines, and you could see the double rows were splitting out like this, like peace signs. I've got a picture somewhere. I'd find it, sent to you. But
yeah, you got to find all these pictures so I can put it on this video.
Yeah.
So okay, obviously you're ecstatic. Now, how many other mature type shooter deer did you get on these cards as well?
I had one other deer that was over 4. I had him and this other deer pegged 4 or older. I was pretty sure they were 4, but I really had no history with them. So, but other than that, I had a lot of does, a lot of young bucks. This property didn't really tend to hold a whole lot of bucks during the summer. Getting closer to the rut in November and all that, they started to pile in. But during the summertime, it was him and this other buck.
Okay.
When you that first picture that you got of Deuce, even though it was June, the discussion had to have been there between you and your brother. How big were you thinking that he may end up being in the 2021 season?
I mean, you know how it is whenever you get a crazy picture like that, and in the moment you look at somebody and go, "That's fucking 200." But
you were talking about it.
I had no idea, because there's so much that could happen. In that amount of time, there's so much that could happen. But I remember we were in the pickup driving on the way home, and we had just done, about a mile walk. We're still jumping around in the pickup going, if he ain't a 200 this year, he'll be one next year. That sucker, he's gonna go. And I'm sitting here going, do you kill this deer or do you see what he can be? And I thought long and hard about it, but I can't pass a deer like that, man. There's just no way. Not when there's just one of them running.
So going through the summer, you got a couple cameras out. Did he start showing up on multiple cameras, or was he kind of staying towards like where you were getting him the first time?
So he kind of seemed to stay closer to that southeast corner of the property for the most part in the summertime. So the neighboring property over there had a really nice, ridge that laid into a lot of area, a pond down there. And I really thought that he seemed like he was staying on that property, in the summertime, and just kind of venturing over to me to kind of check out the corn and feeding that meadow over the top of that bowl. So I was kind of worried about, whenever things kind of started to shift around, if he may vanish, get an eye on this deer and then he goes MIA for the rest of the season. I don't see him, I was a little worried about that, but all you can do is wait,
Mm-hmm. No,
yeah, especially with it being year one of hunting that property, you don't know that summer range, the fall range, if they make that shift, or if you're going to get more deer, you're going to lose deer. Like that's all the unknown yet.
Right. Yeah. There's no telling what's going to show up or leave or take off. I mean, you just don't know.
Yep.
What happened when you got the first picture of him when he was basically full growth? What did he look like? Let's start explaining him a little bit here.
I sent you guys that picture, and I was sitting on the couch, and I'm trying to remember who
was it. Which one was it? Was it the dark one?
The one in full velvet. The only one I sent in velvet.
I don't know if it's this one, but people probably can't see it.
Yeah, that's the one. Yep. I was sitting on the couch looking on the computer because this is still a card pull camera. I almost owed my brother's girlfriend a new laptop because I flew up off the couch and was jumping around, and he sure enough is, he's going to go too. And, they always look a little bigger in velvet, but man, that deer was something special. I mean, he turned into something that, the majority of hunters just don't get a chance at. You don't get to take a stab at a deer like that every single day.
Yeah, that's a 1%er right there. I mean, if he, just by looking at the picture, like like I said, it's in velvet, so it's kind of difficult. But if he doesn't go too, he's knocking on it. I mean, and you'll probably know, but don't say it yet. I mean, he's there. Okay, he's a freak. How many scoreable did he have?
I think I counted 19.
Oh Jesus,
And
Mama.
Yeah, and he just
he had
got
a,
trash.
just to kind of, depict this deer. He's got tines, he's got kickers running off his twos, he's got double road tines, but off of his it's hard to tell from the pictures. I think his left side base, he's got a paddle the size of your hand. If you were to stick it on your forehead, that sticks straight out from his forehead. It's the size of a man's hand, a grown man's hand, if you can see that.
Yeah, I can see it. He's got, I mean, from this picture, it looks like he's got at least three brow tines, and that, including that paddle, and they're all 7 to 8 inches long. And I mean, right there, I mean, just in brows, he's got almost 30 inches in brows right there,
Yeah. Yeah,
That's just crazy.
He's got what? He's got like flyers and kickers. I mean, he's got everything. He's got everything you would like.
Yep. So now, I mean, that was probably, I'm gonna guess that's probably a late August, early September pick.
Yeah, late August, I believe.
Okay, now was coming into September. When do you guys start? October 1? Are you in
October
October
1? Yep.
Okay. So what's the game plan as he's getting closer to that, September time frame and going to shed his velvet? Because there's going to be a transition and happen, and you've never hunted this farm, so you have no idea what these deer are going to do. What's your head? Where's your headspace at this point?
Whenever I start moving into September, most of my properties that I've ever tried to do any kind of management on, as soon as September hits, if I'm feeding corn, September 1, they get all the corn I can give them, and then I'm out of there until October 1. I'm letting it lay loose, letting them kind of settle down. They're used to me being in there, but I don't want them to know that I'm coming back to hunt them, And so I'm trying to remember 2021, I believe that was the year that we took off to Kentucky. So September 1, I put corn out, and we took off on a Kentucky hunting trip. Went up there, got our asses kicked, come back home, and tried to kick the season off at October 1. So
okay. Now, what was he doing in September? Like when he shed his velvet? Do you remember when he shed his velvet, roughly?
I got a picture of him, I believe, September 10th, and he was hard horned.
Okay.
Coming in just like he was, early morning, late evening. His daylight is starting to change. He's not dead as much, but he's still around. He's still coming through. Doesn't seem like he's moving off too far. So I'm kind of hopeful that he's not going to make too big of a shift, and I might still have a chance at trying to get in his wheelhouse.
Yeah. Now, is this deer a loner? Is he only by himself?
He never really, when he was in velvet, he kind of stayed in the bachelor group, but early season he ran by himself. Later on, I come to find out that he's not a very aggressive deer. He just kind of like to keep to himself. A quality that I kind of find that these older, bigger, more mature whitetails tend to keep. They just kind of like to be on their own. They know what works and they're going to do it.
Mm-hmm.
But
yeah, I was gonna say that when around that September 10th time, it'd be really easy for a lot of guys that they almost feel like a relief because he stuck around even after he shed his velvet. Where I tell you, sometimes I honestly think it's almost like that 2 weeks after they shed, that's when I lose a lot of deer. So it's like even that time, so you're a little bit excited, he's still there, hard horn, but hold on, we still have about like a 2 week window to make sure that he's going to stick around and that we're still going to have this, quote unquote 200-inch deer to possibly hunt that fall.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. And, that's kind of where things tended to go. He didn't completely disappear, but he definitely, made himself very slim on the property. I could tell that he was spending his time on the neighbors and just kind of trickling through to kind of swing through, late September and early October. I opted to just kind of leave him be and let him do his thing. and glass from afar, come opening day. So
yeah, when you talk about the neighbors that I've heard you talk about them twice, but it's kind of got that nice ridge system, and now that you believe that maybe Deuce is spending more time on the neighbors than the property that you have permission on, is that the same neighbor that you actually try to gain permission on to access from the south?
no, so here's where things get a little crazy. The neighbors to the west of me hunt. The neighbors to the south of me hunt only during rifle. They're the ones that wouldn't let me access. They're not too big into it. They go out, 2 weekends a year. I'm not too worried about them. The neighbors that he was spending most of his time on was off to the east, and they don't hunt at all. And then straight to the south of them is common school land access ground. Nobody can hunt this common school land. It's unless you for the farming rights, you're not getting on this place. And I think that's where he spent a majority of his time, whenever I couldn't figure out where he was at.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
he's got himself a little haven somewhere that nobody can get to.
Yeah. Well, and you got to really think about this too. Outside of, take away the him, being in full velvet and going hard horn, that velvet shift, you also got to think you're talking about a piece of property that you're on now that he probably hasn't had too much of human encounter with over the last 15 years outside of, your boss that was probably on some kind of heavy equipment, where it's like his little haven was probably part of what you were actually hunting at that same time.
I wouldn't doubt that I gave him more pressure than he needed whenever I first busted into this place. I completely agree with that.
It almost makes you.
But I was going to say, even a little bit of pressure, like very light
pressure. When they're not used to anything.
Yeah, when he's not used to anything at all, like that's going to be a change for him.
I completely agree.
Well, the first thing I thought of too is like, the little bit of pressure this deer may have had on your boss's property is like on a track hoe or something.
Right.
Like, just what is it to track hoe out there going hunting? You know what I mean? Like, hey, rip open the skid loader and like, hey, I'm driving the skid loader in tonight. You know what I mean? As weird as it sounds, maybe this deer grew up with your boss doing that.
Right.
Damn thing.
I thought about, trying to take the utility tractor in because he does go through there and mow, for the areas that he runs on. He'll mow a place for him to drive his pickup and this, that, and the other. And I've tried that. I did it a couple of times, and it didn't seem to help more than it did damage. Whenever I was running through there, and so I kind of came back to the assumption that these deer are just used to nothing, and I've just got to slip in about as quiet as I can. So
you're talking about you got two properties in that neighborhood that's not getting any hunting pressure at all. Like it is. So it's the perfect recipe to grow and hold an animal of that caliber.
I'm trying to wrap my head around this whole thing because it's like, first of all, I'm still wrapped up on how you just got this served you on a gold platter and how envious of you I am. And now this like world-class deer shows up. So, okay, so he sheds his velvet in September. Like you get a picture of him hardhorn September 10. It's got to be hard to not get so excited about this thing and just like not make an emotional decision of like, you still have to mind your P's and Q's in a way. You've got to be dialed. You have to be on a deer like this. Now, how many pictures in the last 3 weeks of September did you get of him going into October? And was there any daylight movement?
He was cycling through every 3 days, just shy daylight, just right before. Mostly. He'd kind of peek in the evening on random, but any kind of consistent pattern was right before shooting light, early morning.
Now, is there any consistent pattern? Like, is it same camera, roughly about same time, like something that's like really patternable?
Roughly same camera every 3 days. He would roll through right before shooting light. And that was really the only pattern I could kind of put together. I was catching him on my camera over here across the meadow, dipping off into that other ridge, taking that bench down. I mean, there's just he's heading across the property, and I'm trying to kind of get. And at this point, I'm implementing more cameras, trying to get my pinpoints together and figure out some kind of point of travel. You know what I'm saying? So before,
But
go ahead.
I was gonna ask. I kind of been dying to ask this question, and I'm guessing he wasn't. But were you ever able to like glass from that high rock ledge that ledge at all?
So the rock wall that is running through the middle of the property is too low to get eyes on him across the ridge, because the ridge kind of peaks up a little higher than the rock wall does and dips back down into a meadow. But right behind my boss's house, there's and I think I've actually sent you videos of this place. You can almost see the whole place. There's a big rock formation. It's actually part of the same rock formation that the wall is part of. It's just kind of separated. You can get up above and almost see the whole place. And most of September, that I was trying to tell myself, stay out of there, stay out of there, stay out of there. I was giving myself that little bit, that little sliver of getting ready for the season, of parking in his driveway and walking 100 yards to the top of that big, glassing point, and just trying to get eyes on something. I saw a few deer that would have been shooters the next, year or 2 years, but I never did lay eyes on him through the glass, prior to my first encounter with him.
Yeah, yeah. Now I've heard you kind of talk about, in the back of your mind, you kept telling yourself to kind of stay out of there, stay out of there, stay out of there. Now, before getting your hands on a private piece of 400 acres that's been untouched, now was that always kind of your style, or were like, now that you were kind of playing game on a different court, were you thinking that like, oh my gosh, I can't be aggressive like I've always been, like I need to kind of lay up this time?
You know, whenever I first got pictures of this deer, I was completely okay with not killing him the first year that I hunted him. I knew that on a deer like this is a deer you play the long game on. Um, I would rather sit my entire season of observation sits and not bug that deer out and figure out how he's running, than to get in there and booger him out and send him over to the neighbors to get shot with a rifle. So I wanted to gather any kind of information that I could, soak it up. I wanted to be a sponge, but I didn't want to get too close. I didn't want to make mistakes, you know, before I had a rough idea what was going on.
Yeah. Now that's probably a mindset that you haven't really been able to have though, with like the type of land you were hunting before. Like the thought of like, okay, hey, if I don't shoot this deer, there's a high chance he makes it another year. I mean, he's already possibly maybe 4, maybe 5. I'm not too sure what you thought he was in 2021, but like that, it's a totally different animal. That not plush, but like it's a whole different ball field right there compared to what you've been playing.
Yeah, and I've hunted mature deer before, just not in this type of arena. If you know, uh, I'm a little bit out of my wheelhouse, and
Yep.
and so it's kind of funny that the first deer that of this caliber that I'm after is in something that I'm just completely out of tune with. If this deer had been on flatland somewhere, I'd have had that sucker killed awful quick. But I told myself, let's play the long game. Let's not make mistakes. Let's learn before we stab. Let's get in there, but let's not get too aggressive early, because if it takes 2 years, 3 years, it doesn't matter. We're just gonna get it killed.
Yeah. Now, were you and your brother kind of on the same page with that going into the 2021 fall? Like you got a big deer. He's on every 3 days. Is kind of somewhat on a pattern, close to daylight, but like, hey, there's a good chance that first week of the season we are probably going to lay eyes on him, if not get a chance.
So really, my brother was only there to help me kind of get the property set up and help me kind of game plan. He had previously moved back down home and was managing a bunch of our places that we've always hunted down there. He was mostly just a corner man, a guy that I called before and after every single sit, just trying to figure out where to go next. picking the right tree, whether it's 10 yards or 100 yards. We just got to get a little closer and get it just a little bit more piece to the puzzle. So no, he didn't hunt that property with me, but he played a big role. Him and a number of my other friends. They're probably tired of hearing about it, by now. But
I got a question. When you got this deer, when you located this deer, did you tell your boss about him?
No, not a chance. And that was something that was probably one of the hardest things that I've had to do, because he asked me questions. Hey, you getting any good deer on camera? And I mean, I've got one other shooter that's showing up, and I really don't necessarily want to show him that one either. So I'm showing him pictures of dinks, going, yeah, like this isn't a bad deer. We'll see.
He's not going to listen to this, is he?
No, not a chance. I don't know. I've kind of got him stuck on Joe Rogan now, so he might just kind of venture over and listen to the fall. But we'll see.
There you go. No,
Joe Rogan's been actually trying to come on this one, so we'll see.
Yeah,
we've been trying to link our times up. We just
I'll give him a call and tell him he needs to give you guys a shout.
There you go. Appreciate it.
Hey, Aaron, great question about telling the boss though. That's a great.
Yeah.
Well,
I opted out.
I've been balancing it. I'm like, do I ask it or do I not? Because I know what I would have done. I would have done the same thing you would have done, and just like hope and prayed, like, no, there's nothing. And then you kill the deer, and if you do, and it's like, oh, deer,
I'll be damned, he showed up.
No, he's rolling in chasing a doe. It's October 1st. Yeah, he was chasing her.
Damn Oklahoma,
he's
crazy weather.
He's like, Jesus, this collar just fell off last month.
Yeah. He's got a
rope rash around his neck.
Yeah.
But no, that'll kind of play in down the road. I think he kind of got wind of it. I don't know how. I never told anybody at work. I tried to keep it, very hush hush. But we'll get to the end of this story and it'll kind of all make sense. But
what if you would have told him? What do you think he would have said?
He's a very honest man. He's very true to his word. He would have let me hunt the deer, but I don't doubt that he would have been out there during rifle season trying to figure him out. Okay. He's not a deer hunter, but a deer like that will make anybody a deer hunter. You know what I mean?
Big deer make people go crazy.
That's right.
So
yep.
All right, so let's get into October here, because from your notes I'm reading here, you just got pictures of them in October. Then you set up on them, you're hunting them, no encounters with them in October, correct?
That's right. No October encounters.
And now the pictures, were any of them daylight, or are they all dark, or are they pretty sparse? Like,
they're all dark, but they're just kind of right on the breach of shooting light, both ends. I'm getting morning and evening pictures. He's just not showing his face.
Okay.
So, I'm not going to hunt a deer that's not giving me a single daylight photo during season. I'm just not going to push in on him. I'm going to try and get an eye on him from afar and figure him out, But that was October mostly.
Okay, let's get into November. How's your game plan changing? I mean, we're getting into the latter part of October, into November, when the ruts here. It's starting to come here. The does are getting, they're smelling good, and the bucks are getting a little frisky. So, what's your game plan going into November?
So, I had 2 days to go hunt this deer at the start of November. It was Halloween, which, I mean, that's the day you want off, right, guys? I mean, that's the day you want to be in the woods.
Mm-hmm.
Halloween and November 1st was the 2 days that I was going to try and take a chance at this deer. I was going to get in between him, his travel between the bowl and where, I thought he was feeding down into this meadow early morning, right? I take a look at the map and say, where would this deer even move through this meadow and dip off into this ridge? And I found this one valley and it's just so steep. There's one side that's like real tall, and the other side just kind of lays in real slick right down to a bench. I'm saying, if that house's property, that's how he's getting down through that ridge. That is just how he's going in. So I load up my assault too and go, you know what? We're just going to take a stab at him. So I get in there, I set up, and I'm right at a Y. There's clear cuts. There's a wall up beside me of cedars. that lays down into that bench. And to the north of me, there's another clear cut that shoots down to the other side of that bench. And the rest of it is plum thicket, just thick plum thicket. Can't see through it, can't walk through it, all that. And it is a beautiful morning. I wake up and, everything comes alive. As soon as the sun gets up, I got does moving through. I'm like, it's going to be a good day. It's one of those bluebird days that's got enough crisp cold to it that the deer are going to get on their feet.
Were you planning on sitting all day?
I was planning on sitting all day if I could take it. I try to ease myself into these all day sits. I've got bad hips and stuff like that kind of hinder me. So I've kind of got to ease myself into it. So if I couldn't make it all day, I was going to put a pretty good effort in. But it didn't take long. I had a lot of deer moving through that morning that were kind of, feeding back down towards the ridge to kind of go down and get ready to bed up for the day. And I assumed that, these does were going to start bedding, start moving back towards their beds. And these bucks would be moving parallel to them on their trails that they're coming through this ridge, hoping that he would come through. If he had a wild hair, he was going to come scent check, And I'll be damned, instead of coming out from the field down towards the beds to scent check, he comes up from the ridge. Mind you, I'm in a mobile set. I set up in this tree that morning expecting that where I'm hanging right now, minute trimming that I do, I'm going to be able to shoot almost everything from where I hang the stand. I turn around and this deer is at 30 yards broadside, come out from the bottom, from the ridge, because I'm on top of the ridge, right dipping down into the meadow. This deer is at 30 yards. And it was like something you see on TV, guys. I mean, it was utterly ridiculous. This deer comes out, he's at broadside, 30 yards. He turns his head. I knew exactly what deer it was when he was facing away from me. He turns his head, and that sun just, blasted off of his antlers. And I'll never forget it. It was amazing. And I thought, I should have hung my tree stand on the other side of this damn tree, because I could have shot him at 30 yards and it'd have been over. But no, he kept going, hit the plum thicket, and just kind of wandered off. I never saw him after that. He hit that plum thicket and he was gone. I tried, some small calling, just little tending grunts, not trying to get too aggressive. I don't want to bump him and scare him off, but just, no answer. And I added a piece to the puzzle, but I was really bummed that I just, it just didn't happen right then,
Do you think he smelt you at all or seen you?
No, that particular spot was one of those thermal hubs that we were talking about earlier. This particular spot, I had, let's see here. I had a southeast wind that was kicking off over my back shoulder, and he come up just right upwind of me. So, right upwind of me. There was no way he could have smelled me. Maybe down whenever he was on the ridge, part of the ridge, you're going to give something up with your wind one way or another. But if he came that close, I don't really feel like he smelled me, Yeah, I was just on the wrong side of the tree. Should have happened then, didn't. Maybe next time I'll trim that branch,
Yeah, it's one of those things where it's like, when you have an encounter and they kind of get away, it's like, oh shit, but when you have them inside, top pin club area and they get away, that those ones don't leave your memory. Like you think about those for a long, long time, if not forever.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Look, looking back on it, 2 of the 3 encounters I had with this deer were inside 30 yards.
Yeah.
It's just, how do you not know exactly what you're trying to figure out about him, and you just end up that damn close, you know what I mean? It's something that'll take your breath away, guys.
Yeah. And listening to you describe that encounter, like there's no doubt in my mind that will forever be ingrained in your head. But the question I have for you right now is, you've kind of hinted about, maybe letting the deer see another year. That morning at 30 yards, was there were you like, yep, I'm shooting this thing? You
There
were,
was there was
you were.
Oh
the
my
only thing
gosh.
that let that deer walk was that tree that morning, guys. There was no way. There was no way that deer was getting by me if I had a clear shot. And
Yeah,
it
yeah,
just wasn't in the cards for that day. And that was
yeah,
fine. I'm still adding it's gonna be a long game. I'd told myself that from the beginning. But it did hurt to see him walk away,
Mm-hmm.
watch him just walk away. And I didn't see him after he got to 40. I didn't see him. He went in that plum thicket and he was gone. There was no
yeah.
seeing. And I thought, I had a pretty good eye on that stuff, off to the east. He was just gone.
Mm-hmm.
And but man, it was beautiful. I something you see on television, no doubt.
So you mentioned that you only had 2 days that early part of November to hunt, the Halloween and the November 1st. So this happened on November 1st. So, what's your schedule looking like now? Like that's also got to be salt in the wound. Like, man, I don't know when I can hunt this deer again. So, and when does your gun season come in?
Our gun season typically starts November November 19th, I believe. Mid to late November. Um, the only kicker that I really had, I was ready to quit my job, take off work, whatever I had to do. To
Hold on,
chase deer.
hold on. If you hold on,
Oh
listen,
boy.
I get it. I get the quit the job thing, but if you quit your job, do you think you still have hunting permission there? Real, real talk. Come
No,
on.
no, not even close.
No, yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but
I
that's
need,
the feeling,
hey, I need unemployment and hunting permission still.
That's right. That's right. I need you to
No,
fire me, boss.
no.
Hey, fire me.
Roll
Um,
your ankle and workman comp his ass.
that's right. And oh man, it was just like, when you see a big deer, you're like, how can I get after him next? This is all I've got to think about for the rest of my days. And so, I'm thinking,
Yep.
when can I come back? What's the next move here? What is the next move? And I get on the phone, I'm calling people. Um, it wasn't until after he walked off that I fell apart. I and I don't typically get nervous until after the fact, but I didn't even draw back on this deer, and I almost rocked myself out of the tree, you know, just
Man.
shaking and then calling my brother and calling my buddies and saying, God, I'll be damned, he showed up, he's at 30 yards. And
Yeah.
it just
Called
didn't
called
happen.
your called, called your brother and told him bring the chainsaw. You got to get rid of that branch.
Yeah, we cut the whole dang tree down. It
Oh
was scary.
Man.
yeah.
But
So
oh
that
man,
was November 1st, and
November
it
1st.
sounds like you weren't able to hunt too much after that, like that next week. Then.
Yeah, no, so that next week, I went back to work. I stayed pretty busy. There's really no chance for me to get out and even glass in the evenings during the week on this place. It's just too far. I get off too late in the day. So mostly I'm relying on cameras that I've kind of painted across the property in, high, productive areas. Just kind of waiting on my next chance, a day that I'm
Would,
going
would
to.
you would you say that for the most part, like during that hunting season, you were kind of the quote unquote like the weekend warrior at that time?
Yeah, for the most part, every weekend that I had a chance to, I was out there hunting. My job being outdoor dependent, weather dependent, if it rains or it snows, I'm out there and I'm after it. It doesn't matter what the weather's like, I'm taking a trip. And so,
Yeah.
I get to hunt, a weekday here and there, but for the most part, yeah, weekend warrior was pretty much my status for the entire season.
Okay. Did you ever find that it was kind of it sounds like your boss is a good guy, right? But did you ever find it difficult to think like, man, I want to take some time off to maybe go hunting, but like I'm also like I'm hunting my boss's property.
Yeah, whenever I talk to my buddies on the phone, they're like, just call in sick, just call
Right.
in sick. And I'm like, guys, like, it doesn't work like that. I'm hunting my boss's place. And they're like, oh, yeah, well, can you get in from the backside? And I'm like, it doesn't work like that. There's just no chance.
Yeah.
And so, I had to hunt him whenever I had the opportunity. Um, moving on later into November, I'd drawn a rifle tag for some public land in Oklahoma. So I drew a buck and a doe tag on public ground on the 13th, I believe, of November. And so, I'm kind of gearing up for that, kind of get my mind off of it, let him settle down, keep an eye on cameras, glass if we can. Um, and so I'm just kind of getting ready for my rifle hunt. It's just a 1 day hunt. You got to kill a doe first, and then you can kill a buck. Check in your doe, you can kill a buck on public land. It's a pretty neat little deal. But anyway, I'm at Walmart. I've got to go pick up an orange hat for the next day because there's going to be a lot of people out there. I'm walking out of Walmart and my phone goes off. Now I've got a camera up above the wall on the west side near the other neighbor's property on a scrape that I'd found. And this is 11 o'clock at night, the night before I'm supposed to get up and go hunt this public land. I get a picture of Deuce hitting that scrape, coming back onto the property during the rut. And so instantly to my head just goes, do I skip this draw hunt? Do I just throw this out the window and go chase this deer? And, I make 4 or 5 phone calls. I'm like, guys, what do I do? Do I just go back to this deer and fault on this draw hunt? Or, am I grateful for this draw and just go let it play out? Everybody's like, screw that draw. Let it go. Let it go. And in my head, I'm not a very lucky person. So whenever I am lucky, I try to take advantage of it. So I opted to go and hunt the draw on public land instead of dive in after him coming back onto the property, which is a pretty ballsy move. But in my head and in my heart at the time, it felt like that was the right move.
Now, outside of feeling, that thought of just feeling lucky, I take it it's a draw hunt, so it's probably a pretty good piece of ground. But like, did you have any kind of like recent information? I mean, you're talking about you intel on, that 200-inch deer Deuce. You have intel within the last 12 hours, but you still like there was a thought in your head that draw hunt may even be better than Deuce by chance?
No, not at all.
Okay.
It's just I don't really know where my head was at. I like to think that you're grateful for what you're given.
Sure.
If you're lucky enough to draw, if I ever want to draw in Kansas or Iowa or any of this stuff, I better not blow off a draw hunt in the state of Oklahoma, my home state.
Yep.
And that's just, everybody called me crazy and everybody said you're nuts. When it came down to it, I killed a doe and a buck that day on that draw hunt.
Oh, nice. On the draw hunt, did you really?
Yeah, and actually, it was actually my first public land buck. It was a pretty neat little deal, pretty good 8-point deer. And by 9 o'clock, I was tagged out and thinking about heading over to hunt after Deuce. I was tagged out by 9 and thinking about how can I get over and make this drive.
Yeah. So that was like best case scenario, right? Like
exactly. I'm riding on a high. I'm like, all you guys that told me to blow it off, I got it done, and we're gonna get to hunt the evening.
Yeah. That's best case scenario. And like, you killed both those deer on that draw hunt by, like you said, by 9 o'clock, like you had to be thinking in the back of your head, when I get these deer out, like there's a half a day left. Like, let's just keep this ball rolling today.
Yeah, exactly. And, I had about 1.5 mile drag for both of those deer. And I actually had some help from another hunter. He saw me struggling along and helped me drag those deer out. But, I'm on the phone going, hey, we're hunting this evening. We're gonna go 3 for 3 this evening, and we're gonna kill a stud. So I get back home, and I quarter and process my own deer myself. I really enjoy doing it, and I've done that ever since I was a kid. And so I'm trying to process, or at least quarter and process these deer as much as I possibly can. I get pretty much all the way there. and done, iced down, at least in quarters before, I start breaking them down, going into the grinder and into steaks and this, that, and the other. And I hop in the pickup and I head west. I'm running a little bit further behind than I would think or I would like to be. And so I get there just in time to get some, get glass on the whole property, get up on the glass and knob, put eyes on things. I didn't see Deuce that night, but I did see a lot of bucks chasing, and I saw some new bucks. You know, pretty much, 3 or 4 year old deer that were nice, and one of them might have been a shooter, and a couple of them are, deer that are up and comers. But the property's hot, this time of year. The property is on fire, and so I'm saying, the next day I want to get in there. I want to get in there.
Whatever
And
happened? Whatever happened to the other shooter buck that you had, the other mature buck? Did you ever see him, or was he on the farm at the same time?
he only showed up a couple of times after he shed his velvet. That deer kind of disappeared, and I didn't get pictures of him until the following summer.
Okay,
And he, long story short, that deer really just summered on us, and that was it. He never really turned up during the rut that I know of. I'm sure he was on the property, but I never caught wind of him, rolling through.
gotcha.
Um, I know he's around, but just not very often.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so now I'm just kind of going through my notes here and everything. So you get back on the farm and you're looking for Deuce and everything. Now this is latter part of November, correct? Or are we into
Right.
December yet?
Uh, so we would be late season. I start, putting the feedback on bag back on for them. I move my feeder over, kind of in a transition area between that plum thicket where I had the last encounter and where I first got pictures of him. Um, I start fielding the feeder back up. I'm not necessarily trying to kill anything. I just want to make sure that these deer have something to eat and I can see who's still around. Granted, I haven't had a picture of Deuce since I saw him, since I had that encounter with him. I'm
So we're
hoping
going
that,
we're going a month into this then.
yeah.
Well,
And
not quite a month because the draw hunt, you got a picture of him the night. What
November,
12th?
okay. Let me back up. November 12th, about 11 o'clock at night, I didn't get pictures of it. Or no, I got pictures of him
Yep.
and then didn't hunt him. We kind of went over that, but
Yep.
went on the draw hunt, was successful on the draw hunt. Took a couple other hunts at Deuce, the next few days. No avail, nothing really happened. Didn't ever really lay eyes on much other than, I think I passed a couple of 3-year-olds, but other than that, couldn't really get eyes on him. So I'm kind of regretting, going on the draw hunt, but I'm, happy that it still worked out. But
So, but you could be thinking that he died in gun season though. Like
right,
you don't have confirmation that he's alive.
right. At this point, I'm kind of getting worried. After he came on the property and I, decided not to go hunt him that next day and go on the draw hunt, which was, a risky move.
Mm-hmm.
No pictures, nothing.
Mm.
So I'm
Yeah.
going, this deer has either gotten shot or he's injured and holed up somewhere. Because if this deer got shot, I would have heard about him. At least I like to think so. I like to think that this deer, the news would get out.
Right.
And so I'm saying,
That's what I wanted to ask you, Cameron, is that, since you don't actually kind of live in that area and you're kind of, a good clip away from there, is that, throughout gun season and kind of afterwards, when you're kind of wondering what maybe happened to Deuce, is he alive? Is he not alive? Were you able to make like any contacts with anyone kind of in that neighborhood of where that deer called home? Or were you kind of looking at social media to see like, people that these landowners, did they kill them? Like, did you know any kind of information from anyone around the area about that deer?
I talked to one landowner over there that he owns 15 acres just right up against the road. And that was the only one that I really divulged that I'd been hunting this deer. He had pictures of him. Never had any shot opportunities, but had seen him passing through. So this takes this deer from the northwest corner of the property all the way down to the southwest corner. He's moving through the whole deal. And a property that diverse, it gets pretty complicated awful quick. But moving into the later part of the season, I would come in and poke into the coffee shops, on my way in and on my way out, just kind of trying to catch drift of if somebody killed a giant deer, and I never heard anything about it. But you kind of always have those anomalies where those old men, they kill a giant deer and they don't tell anybody about it. I kept an eye on social media. There was a couple of deer that looked awful close, but just not him. Moving into late season, I was pretty confident that he was alive, but I was a little worried that he had been wounded. No real evidence to say that. I just kind of had a feeling. So we're still in, let's say we're still in rifle season. I take my fiance out for one hunt. And
on this farm?
Yeah, on this farm.
Okay.
I feel like I kind of skipped over that. We go out 3 or 4 times a year. She doesn't get out much. She stays pretty busy with her job, but I always try to take her out during rifle season, a couple of times a year. She's been with me almost every time I've killed a big deer. It's ridiculous. She's good luck charm as good as it gets. Her first hunt of the 2021 season, we're walking in and we get 200 yards in, and I look up on this little knob and I see a deer stand up out of his bed. See, we're down walking in the valley of a meadow where we're pretty much covered by almost everything except for the very top of this knob. And I see a deer stand up out of his bed. And so we drop to the ground, and I get in the binos and I look up there. Sure enough, I mean, it's a hammer, a big deer. And it just
deer you've never seen before.
Deer I'd never seen before. Wide, big 10-point. I mean, just wide and tall, big hammer. And we're about 300 yards away. And I'm like, I know this gun's dialed in. She could probably make the shot. And I'm like, okay, let's just see, right, there's a big deer, bedded down over here. Let's just see if we can, sit here and see what he does. If he moves, we'll move. If not, we'll see if we can sneak up and get a shot. And in this back of my mind, I'm going, that wasn't Deuce. There wasn't no way. No, that was a 10-point, Hope, just like letting her, this is you. You got this. You can do it. And I'm like, that's not him. There ain't no way.
You're looking on your phone. God,
yeah.
I don't think that's him.
I'm like, I ain't never seen this deer. I ain't never seen him. Yeah, no, you got the green light. Okay. You think you can shoot him? How far is it? Oh, it's like 200. It's like 300 yards. And this deer beds back down. Just beds back down and goes back. I mean, just lays his head on his shoulder, goes back out. And I'm like, well, shoot, let's make a move, And so we try to crawl a little closer, and he'd get his head up. Finally, he stands up out of his bed, and I've got my 308 on my shoulder like this, trying not to blow my eardrums out. Long story short, she takes a shot, shoots a little low. The windage dials had gotten bumped in the process. She shot low, missed the deer clean. He turned both ways, walked out of my life. Never saw that deer again. Just missed a 150 25 minutes into the hunt. Rifle season. I try to hunt Deuce up above the wall. There's a big saddle up there where he was crossing through. There's a big saddle, and we'll kind of get to that later in the 2022 season. But just really didn't catch much wind of him. I checked around best I could for, coffee shops, phone calls. Tried to reach out to people. People kind of didn't really want to tell people much. I don't know if that was just because they were private people or because they were, also hunting this deer. But I just didn't get a whole lot of outside help other than from, my brother and my friends and things like that. I did, however, go out and get the bow hunt the last day of bow season, which is January 15th.
And you still haven't got a picture of this deer and confirmation that this thing's still alive. Okay.
I've already almost accepted that he's laying in the creek somewhere. I'm going to find him as a deadhead, maybe. For some odd reason, I just like, this deer's got to be shot or something. There's no way he's not moving through here. I've got something going on.
Yeah, because you were trying to feed him too, and he wasn't even showing up on that.
Well, okay, so through rifle season, I was getting pictures of him, but he was coming in early, and he actually daylighted during rifle season a couple of times, but I never did get in there to hunt him. We got back there a few times. I got really busy with work, and there was just no chance to hunt this deer.
Yeah.
But then towards the last couple of weeks of rifle, he disappeared. There was no way to get a hold of him. I mean, deer was gone.
I think if you would have told your boss about him, he probably would have given you some time off.
Not a chance. There ain't no way. This guy's all work, no play. There ain't no chance. But I'm not very optimistic. Going into the later part of the season, I'm having to to get into this place at this point. The snow's kind of melting off. We had a snow the last weekend of bow season. We had a snow, and to get into this place, you've got to cross a creek. And since the water was up, it was a little too tall to get over my rubber boots. And so going in on this last day of bow season, I had to strip down to my bare feet and walk across this creek in the ice and everything. Got soaking wet, climbed up into the tree, and go, oh my gosh, I'm just not going to make it. There ain't no way I'm making it all day in this. And as soon as the deer started moving, I warmed up a little bit. We get a little closer to 9 o'clock, and I look over towards that bowl where I'd first gotten pictures of this deer. Right where, the central hub of where this deer is just, spokes on a wheel. That is where he's originated from for the most part across this entire farm. And I see tines going down the side of the fence. Well, that's a big deer. Throw the glass up. Sure enough, it's him, 200 yards. And I'm thinking, it sure warmed me up if I got up and ran over there, trying to make a move on him.
200 looks good.
Yeah. I was like, let's shimmy down this and catch him on the next hill. Let's take a run and warm up a little bit and try and get a shot on this deer. And about that time, he turns, hops the fence to the neighbors, and that was it for the 2021 season. I mean,
oh my God,
that was it.
But it's the last day, right?
The last day. So I know he's alive.
He's alive. Like it. Yeah. So
until you hear, oh woo, come from the neighbors.
Boom.
Yeah. Last day of bow season, you hear that rifle go off.
Yep.
I can see it happening.
Oh woo.
Yeah. So as much as that, yeah, awesome to see him. Counter number 2. Yeah, he's over 200 yards away, but knowing as much as that probably damn, I didn't kill him. Driving home that night also meant dude, he's alive. He looked good. There no limp, no injuries. Everything looked good. Where it's like, hey, we're in the chips for the next season too.
Yeah, yep. And I was really excited about it because a deer like that, you don't know what he's going to turn into. He's alive. He's not going to get hit by a car. He's not going to get poached, hopefully. I mean, that deer, he's in a hidey hole right in the middle of a big section. I mean, that deer's going to make it. I'm going to get eyes on him next year. And hopefully, I mean, we're going to shoot a deer worth talking about, you know what I mean, in the 2020 season.
So after, so it's closing day, last day of bow season. Deuce is alive. Season's over. How long were you instantly thinking, dude, I'm going to tear this whole damn place apart? Or did you actually kind of sit on it for a little bit with the thought of hey, I may be able to find his shed?
The weekends following after the last day of bow season, I burned it up. I mean,
hammered
it up. And man, I really started to figure things out. I mean, it was just things started to click. I just, deer moving from here. And when they shoot down this laundry chute, they come out over here. And I mean, things just really started to make sense to me. And I was really optimistic rolling into this next season. I was like, this deer is on the farm. I will figure him out and I will kill him. At least I will have him in bow range. I'm very, very confident in that. I'm starting to get a little more confidence. I'm ready to roll the dice, I kind of got a gist of what's going on. I mean, I'm ready to go in and try and make my big move, which, coming into the next year, this is year number 5. I think he's a 5-year-old deer. This is what we're chasing, big, old,
Yep.
mature deer.
Now, did you?
That off season, did you find anything in that off season where you're like, maybe that little bit of pocket where you're like, dude, he may be spending some daylight hours here, or just that little bit of something where it's like, hey, this is his weakness here.
I found a few things that I couldn't necessarily say that they were his weakness. But I did find a few things where it was, a lot of deer were backdooring me through way. I mean, this place is a corn maze. And you pick one way and they go the other. But I did definitely start to kind of color things in. Really just map things out. The movement really just started to make sense. I started clocking a lot of buck beds, and you could really pick out which ones were, the mature buck beds, because it's just like everything you read about, big points and wind over top and line of sight and everything. It's textbook stuff that is starting to really, I'm starting to put pen to paper. I'm starting to see things open up from what I've heard and what I've read, and all this research and all these experiences that I've heard from other people are really just starting to open up in front of me. And so, 2022, I'm ready. I'm ready to go to battle. I've got it figured. I'm going to kill this deer.
No,
I love it, dude. I love it.
I agree there. I agree 100%, but I've got a question for you because it's something even I struggle with still to this day. When you're going into this off season and you're scouting all this and you're finding these buck beds, you're finding these points, the way that the deer are moving, and in backdooring you say, how are you retaining all of this information? Like, how are you trying to decipher it? And then, because we're talking late season, we're talking what we're talking now, February, March, when it really, it means a lot, but like you've still got 7 months until you can even start deploying this stuff.
Right,
so.
different patterns. So
Exactly. So how are you digesting that in your head and keeping it in the memory bank of like, this is top tier, this is second tier, this is like, how are you working through that?
So me, I have a hard time remembering things. I'm not very, on the ball when it comes to remembering things. So I keep a journal. I write things down. I'll draw a map with points, and I will coordinate those with pins that I've dropped on my Onyx with notes. And I made notes that, hey, this is late season sign. This is the hottest stuff that I'm seeing late season when I'm scouting. But I'm also really trying to take note of, you know, rut activity, historical rubs, community scrapes, the big hub areas that I know that deer are going to congregate in. Those are the type of things that I'm trying to figure out, and how I can make an entry route to these places without getting busted, because that's the most important thing. You can hunt the deer where they're at all you want, but if you blow them out, they're not going to be there.
Right.
And so, I just really tried to be very intricate with my note taking and breaking things down and referring back to them whenever I, rear into the 2022 season.
I like it. I'm the same way. I got to write things down. If I don't, I forget it. That's why you see me looking down at a whole bunch. I've got notes over here. I got notes over here. I'm writing crap down. I'm like, I've got papers everywhere. So
exactly.
If I don't write it down, I don't remember it, man.
I always think about, if I own, say, 400 acres, like this piece of property that Cameron's talking about, or whatever, 200 acres, I don't care. If I own like a big piece of ground like that, like I've always thought that I love the idea of those real big maps that guys can put on the walls, but like I would have like sticky notes on it, these pins on it, where it's like if you had sole access to that, where it's like you could really mess with it. I would love that idea.
Oh yeah. For sure.
So go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, so January 15th, season ends, you encounter them for the last time. You go in and you're scouting off, or, in the off season, everything. Did you ever find any shed? Did you find his shed? Like where anything like that?
So I thought I hunted him hard, right? I thought that I put a lot of effort into that season and hunted him awful hard. I was really wore out, but whenever it came, you know, late February, early March, that's when I wore myself out because I like to shed hunt almost more than I like to deer hunt. And so, a property that's 400 acres that hunts like it's a million, um, we put the miles on. And I found quite a few sheds, but no, I never turned up with one single shed from him. And
Wow.
talk about a heartbreak after a heartbreak. You know what I mean? Just kick you while you're down. I was
Mm-hmm.
so determined, and I gritted everything and high probability spots, and it just didn't work out. And I've yet to find a shed off this deer.
Did you find any sheds that were like deer that you didn't know about, but were like big deer? Like, oh man, this is like 150, 160 type deer. Like, I got some good prospects coming into 2022.
Yeah, not so much north of 150, but 100, high 140s, low 150s deer, they're there. And I know that I've got a couple of prospects coming up the next year that I would definitely be willing to take. They're not priority, but we get 2 bucks in Oklahoma, and I have a hard time taking two off of one place, but for two really mature deer, I would be okay with. So yeah, I'm
Mm-hmm.
definitely keeping an idea of what's upcoming, coming up to the next year. Um, but my sole focus was Deuce
Okay.
in the coming season. So
Okay. Let's get into the summer. What happens? You put corn out again? You get your cameras in the locations where you need them. You're starting to get inventory. Does Deuce show up?
not even once, not at
Mm.
all. And so I start freaking out. I'm getting good deer on camera. I've got a deer that I actually found a shed off of that he's going to be a pretty good deer, but I'm not after a pretty good deer. On this place that I know that this deer is running around on, I'm not after a pretty good deer. Um, and he doesn't show his face. And you know, that being said, I've got cameras rolling around, but mainly soakers, not a whole lot of cell cameras. But I've kind of felt like I let the camera data kind of dictate where I hunted too much in the previous years. And so I kind of backed off of my trail cameras. I left them over the corn piles and tried to take inventory. But, going into the 2022 season, after I got my inventory, the only cameras that I was going to have out was cell cameras over scrapes and soaker cams that I was going to pull at the end of the year. I was going to hunt the hottest sign that I could find based off of historical data I knew off of what a Deuce had done in the past, what little that I had.
Okay. Now, heartbreaker. I mean, you're going through the summer now. We're coming into, and I'm looking at notes here. I mean, no sign of Deuce at all in the summer. Nothing. Coming into September, nothing. Coming to October, you're probably thinking about readjusting and figuring out like, okay, this deer, he's gone. At some point, you got to be like, you know, I got to let it go. If he shows up, he shows up, but I've got to readjust so I don't waste this year.
Exactly.
What did you do there readjusting? Now you got a couple good deer on the farm. What's your plan there readjusting?
My plan had mainly been I had a solid 5-year-old deer, if not six. That's a mainframe 9 with a couple of stickers that, was in the high 150s, maybe break 160s, real heavy on the bases. And, you know, I'm thinking this is a deer we go after in October. We hunt him on acorns and we try and figure him out. And then, come November, we're going to hunt runt funnels and we're going to see if Deuce shows up.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to see if we can't get some kind of sliver of an idea that he's on the property. And I don't care what it takes. We're going to take off of work or we're going to do whatever it takes to see if we can figure it out. And so, early October, through most of October, I kind of set my sights on this, big mainframe 9-point that I called Slick. And, throughout October, I had only one encounter with this deer. And it's kind of a funny story. So I think it was probably October 18th. I was off or something from work, and I snuck in there, and I know I'd gotten on a thick acorn pattern for these deer on this main ridge that runs down the property. And so I thought, I'm getting in later this evening. I got off of work like in the middle of the day or something. And so I jetted out there and tried to climb up in a tree and get in between those acorns and the field that I've been glassing them feeding in. And so I, shimmy up a tree like 2 hours, 2.5 hours before dark. And there's a big trail coming through. And I'm thinking maybe he'll feed up out of this bottom, coming into this meadow, and I'll maybe get a shot at 20 yards. It ended up working out, but the problem is there was a big rainstorm coming through, and my phone's going off. Going off. You're fixing to get hail. You're fixing to get the worst thunderstorm of your life. And so I'm going, I ought to get out of the tree. Don't get me wrong. I ain't afraid of heights, but I'm not too keen on getting blowed out of one either. You know what I mean? And so I start tearing down. I lower my bow. I start tearing down, and I'm hunting in a saddle at this point. And so, I'm throwing the platform down. I'm like, not taking any care in the world. I get halfway down. I'm 4 sticks up. I get halfway down. I'm 2 sticks, bow on the ground. I look up, and that deer, Slick, that big mainframe, high 150s, low 160s, 9 points coming down the trail. At this point, I'm trying to think, do I tear out the pocket knife and try to make a slingshot or try and pull the bow up? What do I do?
just throw it at him.
Jump out of the tree on top of him or what?
Oh my gosh.
And this deer walks by me broadside.
How far?
20 yards. And it's starting to rain at this point, and I'm sitting there cramping my sticks, going, damn, I wish I at least had my bow. And just watch him, watch his butt disappear into the CRP for the evening. And I'm thinking, I'm fixing to get soaking wet. And I got my tail kicked by this deer that didn't even know I was there, that I should have killed. And so, I walked back to the truck, soaking wet, a little down on my luck, thinking, if Deuce don't show up, I'm going to have a bone to pick with that deer for sure. You know what I mean? So, going through October, I'm thinking that's the deer I'm after. That's the deer I want. If Deuce wants to show up during November, I wouldn't, I'd definitely take a stab at him.
Yep. So, okay, now let's roll into November. Now Deuce still hasn't shown up. Still hasn't been on camera. The deer is gone. You have no idea where he's at, what he's doing. Even if he's still alive, could have got hit by a car. Shit coyotes could have got him. A poacher could have got him. Who knows? But November 12th rolls around, right?
Right.
November 12th.
Yeah, November 12th.
Let's go through November 12th.
Let's talk about it a little bit.
It's a fun day. It's a fun day.
Bear with me here. If I shed a tear, don't laugh.
Here we go. Here we go.
So, let's revert back to November 12th, the year prior, right? The night that Deuce comes back onto the farm during the rut that I opt out to go hunt the draw hunt, right? I'm thinking, it's November 12th. Why not go hunt on top of the wall?
So are you thinking historically here, okay, yep.
100%. And so right to the north of where that he come in off the neighbors. So it's kind of hard to explain. So imagine the 20-foot tall red rock wall that we imagine, right, that we talked about previously, is right here. And it's kind of a high point that dips down into a short saddle that shoots up into a big knob that's almost like it's a big glassing tip that's covered in timber, big heavy timber. It's just, round like an upside down bowl. And I'm sitting here assuming that this is a bedding area, and if I catch a northwest wind, I'm blowing my wind over the wall anyway. I'm going to shoot any deer that gets within 20 yards of me before they catch my wind, either side, because it's blowing over the wall and everything's dead to rights. I mean, bulletproof setup that I couldn't have thought up in a million years.
Mm-hmm.
I get in there real early. I get set up, kind of have a hard time getting into the tree because I ended up having to get into a cedar tree that wasn't trimmed. And so, I climb up this thing like Spider-Man, start trimming a couple of limbs, but luckily I got in there early enough. As soon as the sun comes up, I'm seeing action. I've got a bedding area to the west of me, and to the northwest, I've got my wind coming out over my shoulder, blowing, where I don't even care it's going. And I've just got deer pouring in from all sides. They're coming from below the wall to the top. I've got them coming from the scrape down to me. I've got bucks chasing. I think I counted a total of 19 deer that morning before I saw Deuce.
Oh my God. Okay. Whoa.
Yeah. Because
let's pump the brakes here, because we're almost a year into not seeing Deuce and knowing he's alive. Yeah. Almost. I mean, let's break down this encounter. You gotta get us in the tree here.
So we're in the tree. I'm thinking, in Oklahoma, we wreck the bone together. We'll hit the rattling antlers.
You can't leave out details like this.
I'm sorry. Yeah. I'm working on it. I'm doing my best.
Yeah. I mean, it's November 12th. Every deer I see on November 12th, I'm thinking the next one's gonna be it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
You have to be thinking.
At this point, I'm going, and I've been hitting bone together that morning a couple of times and like grunting, seeing deer chasing. I'm like, this is the time. If he's going to show up, he's going to show up.
So you're still thinking about it.
There's only 2 deer on this farm that I'm shooting at this point. There's only 2 deer on this farm that I'm shooting.
Okay.
I've got a scrape 100 yards to the east of me, right where the wall lets down to the bottom. Okay, we're getting into details now. I got you, buddy. Don't worry.
Got to get details. Yep.
Okay, here we go.
So we've got a scrape cluster, if you will. There's 3 scrapes, one big main scrape that shoots down to the bottom of that wall. The only place they can get up from the wall, except for all the way to the north, right by the house. I'm hunting in that saddle, right in the dip of that. I'm about 80 yards from that scrape, but downwind of that big upside down knob that they would be bedding in, coming down through that saddle to scent check that scrape and scent check that doe bedding area. With my wind absolutely bulletproof. I'm tending grunt, white tending grunts, looking in, glassing the CRP. My eyes are hurting so bad, I'm just in the glass all morning. I'll hit the horns together. I had a little buck coming through, decent 8-point coming through, does bust up from the bottom. I mean, there's just deer everywhere all morning. Man, I did skip ahead. I'm sorry about that.
You did. Realized. You did. See, good host over here. Got to get you back.
Yeah. I'm telling you, you guys are doing a hell of a job. Let me tell you. So I've got deer rolling around everywhere. The problem was I wanted to hunt all day. One of my best friends was getting married that day.
Oh, God. Who gets married on November 12th? Come on.
I'll give you a phone number. You can give him a call.
Didn't he know the historical data of Deuce from the year before? I mean,
is he not a hunter?
Not this guy. He is a hunter, but he's rifle hunter. Anyway,
go figure.
He get married that day, and so I've got to be to my house by 2:00. Which, granted, I'm a little over an hour away, and I've got to be dressed for a wedding and leave by 2:30. So I'm thinking, 11:00, I'll climb down, get walked in. Get set and drive home, get ready for this wedding. I see 19 deer, bucks chasing does, they're everywhere. And I'm thinking, okay, it's 10:30. I go, okay, we're going to hit one more sequence, one more rattling sequence, glass everything, and wait till 11. 11 will tear down. So I hit it, and I hit it hard, everything I can do. I'm shaking branches. Everything that I've ever had any kind of, success with, hitting it hard. and I finish it off with a couple of tendon grunts. I'm sitting there glassing, and it's I have this weird feeling. It's like, don't get out of the tree, don't get out of the tree. But then on my other shoulder, I hear, don't piss Riley off. Get home and get ready for that wedding. And so
Better not be late. Better not be
exactly.
late.
You guys understand. And so I'm saying, okay, tear down. It's just a deer. We'll go home. We'll hunt him another day. I'm throwing sticks out of the tree in a hurry, dropping stuff, not being quiet. To hell with this. Let's go home. I get down there and I shoo cows off. There's cows underneath me. I'm shooing them off. Get out of here. Get out of here. Waving my hat around. I finally get, my platform packed up and ready to hike out of there. And so if you can imagine the high side of that saddle where that bedding area was, I'm walking away from it up to the edge of the wall where I've got enough cover to not be skylined either way to walk back out of there. And I'm walking up the hill towards that wall. And I look over to my left, and about 100 yards in the exact same spot, headed parallel to the exact same direction that I'm headed towards that scrape, is Deuce.
Jeez.
I'm walking, standing straight up, guys. I'm 6'4". You're not gonna miss me. I'm sticking out like a sore thumb.
What's he look like? How big is he? This is your first glimpse of him in a year.
I don't want to speculate, but he was bigger 2022 than he was in 2021.
Is he all of is I'm gonna throw it out there. Is he all of 200 for sure in 2022?
Now I've held a 190-inch deer in my hands, not mine. Just I've held one.
Oh my gosh!
And he's bigger than that, yeah.
Oh shit!
Wait. So
shit.
like you throw the binos up and you get a good glimpse at her,
No.
or do you know right away?
I'm that close.
He's so damn big. He does not need binos to see.
He's close enough. I don't need binos. It's not that he's big. We're 100 yards from each other, guys. You got to realize 100 yards, and he doesn't see me. We're walking neck and neck, like we're walking together. We're out for a stroll in the park. I mean, seriously, we're walking in the same direction. He's walking straight to the scrape. I'm walking straight to the cow trail to get right towards that scrape and head to the house. I look over and we're walking together. It's like we was holding hands.
But did he, and I'm trying to get more details here, but did he look anything like he did the year before? Kickers and just shit everywhere? Like, what did he look like?
That big can opener kicker off his two got longer. The paddle was still there. He got heavier, a little bit taller from what I could tell, it's weird in this moment, and like in all these encounters and all these moments that I've ever been in the vicinity of this deer, I never got nervous until after he was gone. It was a weird connection. It was like, this walk up this hill, it was like I was walking with this deer. I was out there and I was ingrained in everything that I was doing. I don't get the shakes until he's gone. And so let me just paint this picture for you. He's headed to the scrape and I'm headed in the same direction, just parallel with him. I catch wind that he's walking right next to me and I go, holy crap. That's the one I've been after. And there is no cover. I'm in waist deep CRP, maybe knee deep CRP, not going to hide me. I'm kind of a big guy. I go 10 more yards and get behind this little skinny scrub oak tree and just hunker down, trying to think what's next. He never sees me. He keeps walking, walks right to that scrape and just starts tearing it to shreds. I'd like to speculate that he heard my rattling sequence and my grunts and came to check what was going on. He knew something was in the vicinity and he wanted to let them know. A deer that I had otherwise known as very timid had become pretty aggressive.
He showed a lot of aggression when he went and worked that scrape over pretty good.
I mean, he wasn't trying to work the scrape. He was trying to tear it to the ground.
Yeah.
Did you ever think to like just start rattling or grunting at him at that point?
We're getting there. Detail.
Okay. Okay, sure. All right.
So he's ripping this thing to shreds, and I'm thinking, this is it. This is what everything is built up to. Let's throw it out there. So I let out a pretty good grunt. I mean, a croaker type grunt. He stops and doesn't look at me, just stops, and his ears cock over. One pin's back and the other one's straight forward listening. And then I snort wheezed at him. And that's whenever he bristled up. I mean, this deer, he went from a whitetail to a porcupine real quick.
Oh boy.
He rakes the tree 3 more times, and then he just starts coming to me, right at me. I mean, he at this point, he's at 75 yards, and he's walking right at me. I've got that saddle belly down in the bottom to my left, right? Pretty thick CRP. He's going to hit right at me. He's coming right at me. And then he hits a trail and starts kind of circling around me. And so I start ranging. And you guys know as well as anybody does, when you range a CRP, you're not going to get a good range. Here's where the mistake comes. I start trying to range rough ideas of where he's at. I thought I had a good range. I had all the time in the world. He still wasn't aware that I was behind this tree. I catch a range. Boom, 45. Okay, 45. He gets a little closer, like, 10 yards. I dial my sight back to 35. And don't start preaching to me about this Garmin shit. I don't want to hear it. We can get to that later. I'm guessing, okay.
I'll do that off air.
Yeah. He's shot 10 yards, 35. We're going to drill him. I draw back. He still is unaware that I'm here. Let it go. Right over his back. He doesn't even jump until it hits the ground. The arrow went right over his back and shot into that CRP, and he thought something behind him scared him. And he just kind of trotted off and right up into that big, fat, thick bedding area. And I instantly just fell on my back. And I won't admit that I cried, but I was awful close.
If you've got a pen handy, it's garmin.com is what it is. I can send you a link. Would have got you your biggest deer of your life. Just saying.
Yeah, well, maybe next year.
Oh my gosh, dude.
Take out
Yeah.
What in the... So wait a second. So over his back, he runs off. Okay. Now,
So I instantly call my brother and FaceTime. I FaceTime my brother and he answers the phone and he immediately thinks Cameron fell out of his tree stand because I'm red in the eyes. I'm laying on my back. We had a buddy fall out of a tree stand prepping late September this year and broke his back. And so Dawson goes, Cameron fell out of his tree stand. And I'm just tore up. He goes, What's going on? I said, dude, I just shot over Deuce's fucking back and I'm about to throw up. I don't know what to do with myself. He's going, calm down. Are you sure it was him? 100% it was him. How far was he? Well, I thought he was at 35, Come to find out, I walked over to where he was standing and ranged that tree that I was standing at 25 yards.
oh,
You know what they call that? That's top pin club right there, bud.
it's top pin club.
Yeah,
That is.
I mean, he, in your story when you say that he never even moved until that arrow hit behind him, that tells me he had zero clue you were there. Absolutely zero.
And even after the fact, I'm thinking, okay, I can still get on this deer. He's not, I can hunt him in that same tree even maybe and try and catch him on the same wind, same conditions, maybe I can kind of try and fiddle something together. And moving on down throughout the season, that's what I try to do.
I don't want to throw salt in the wound here, but that 25 yards is, yes, it's top pin club, but it's your proverbial chip shot. That's what that is. It is. Dude.
And that 25
wow.
yards, looks and feels a bit different in like that open CRP
Oh,
compared
yeah.
to like
Exactly. And
all of a
that's
sudden
really what the problem was is, there's if I were to have somebody stand out there and go, how far do you think that is? I would still have a hard time guessing it.
Yeah.
And what it really boils down to, guys, is I had all the time in the world to range that deer's exactly where he was at on his body, and I just didn't take the time to do it. I wasn't very shaken up until after the fact. I was smooth. I was calm and collected. Just one simple mistake, and it cost me. I mean, he walked out, and that was it. He was gone.
But the positive to take out of this, Cameron, like, yeah, that sucks. I mean, it's a deer of a lifetime. That's 1%er there. But I'm gonna go back to 2 hours ago when we started this podcast and we started talking about how you were kind of a fish out of water with this property and still a student in the game, still learning very much things on the fly. This is a situation you've probably never been in. This is a situation now when you get in it again, because it'll happen again. You're going to slow that moment down. You're going to figure out how to slow that moment down, and you're going to make that shot. That's the positive from it. I know that because just from getting to know you in the last 2 hours, I mean, how like kind of analytical you are and how you're very in tune with everything and you write things down and you're very, very step by step and want to learn more. You're going to do that. There was a reason why this happened, and you might not be able to think of it now, but it's a good thing. It was a good thing that this happened.
I completely agree with that, Aaron. I'm the type of guy that I don't really learn a whole lot unless I really mess up.
Yep.
And as I've grown older, I've grown to learn that it's okay to mess up. It's okay to do things wrong.
Yep.
Because the next time I'll never get it. I'll never mess it up again, ever. Because it's so burned into the back of my mind. Like we talked about earlier, throw you to the wolves, throw yourself in the fire. Sometimes when you get in the fire and you get in the middle of it, you get burned, but it's not about what you walk away with that day. It's about, how you move forward after the fact.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't matter if you killed that deer that day, you're going to walk away with a lesson that's going to kill 10 deer, 15 deer, make you a better friend, a better father, any of that stuff. You're going to learn lessons that are going to stay with you for a lifetime, man.
Yep, for sure.
Yeah.
That's the way I see it.
Yeah. Both of you guys have made excellent, I mean, just top-notch points right there. And, every time we do one of these, I don't know if it's just something I kind of pick up on, but I find myself kind of talking to the guest about it. But, we call this series One Giant Mistake, right? But the mistake has to come from some kind of like you put yourself in the right situation for that mistake, right? And what I'm picking up on here, Cameron, is Aaron hit an excellent point. Okay, so I'm not gonna revert back to what Aaron said. But something I kind of picked up also is that for a lot of guys, hell, maybe even myself included, it would have been very, very easy June, July, August, September, October to write that deer off.
Mm-hmm.
But you had one data point of information on that deer from the following year. That was November 12th. Right? Like that, like no matter like it didn't matter what the weather was that day. Hell, you had a wedding, so you knew you weren't even going to get a full day of hunting but you knew that date was important enough on that particular property that it was worth like, hey, yes, there was other deer that you were interested in targeting, but guess what? There's a chance. There is a slight chance Deuce may just show up. So you put yourself out there and you put yourself in the situation to get right in the thick of it. It just, you know what I mean? Like you look back at it and be like, dude, I got down 10 minutes too early, like the wedding or whatever it may be. But the fact is that like you didn't care that you didn't have like 3 months of trail camera pictures of them. You had that one data point and listen, you were confident about it and you were going to basically kind of live or die that day by that historical data. And I freaking love that.
And David, the thing about it is I've never really gotten very aggressive with this deer. And this is exactly what I've been waiting on, something that was like, it's not a sure thing. I'm not hunting trail camera pictures. I'm not saying this deer showing up at 7:15 and I'm going to get in there early enough to come kill him coming through. No,
Yep.
I'm putting all these points together, and I may have not been very aggressive with this deer, but I'm very confident to say that I played chess, not checkers with it. Over the it's not an 8-year story. It's 2 years, but it feels like a lifetime. I've learned leaps and bounds. But I had one shot towards the end of that, once I got into November, I had one rough idea of what was going to go on. And I may only had a morning hunt, but I took it. And, sometimes that's all it takes, man. Just get out there and get in the middle of it.
Yep.
Oh yeah. Yep. A season can change in the matter of seconds. It
Exactly.
really can. And I get it. Like I've been that friend that says that to buddies that are grinding away a season. But I've also been that person where my buddies are like, dude, it can change. And you're like, dude, it can't. Like, come on. Like, it's just not going to, where it's like, dude, yes, it can. Like you said, get out there in the thick of it. And you know what? You know what I don't hear a lot of people talk about that I think about often is just trusting your process. Okay. If your process, I'm going to circle back to that data point of November 12th. If that's your process, trust it and just go with it.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. That's one thing that'll probably kill more deer than any kind of information that you can learn or experience is when your gut tells you to do something, just do it, man. Just get in there and take a chance. And you've done the work. You've studied up, you've done your homework. There's a reason your gut's giving you that little go ahead green light, like get in there, just go, man. I don't care if it's an hour, 2 hours, get in there because it takes 10 minutes, 5 minutes. You get set up and it could happen right then. Get in there, get eyes on something and go off of what you know.
Yep. 100%, man. 100%.
Agreed. Okay, so as I look at my notes here, Cameron, the page ends. What happened? Like, I got nothing else here. We're talking about the season we just came off of a couple months ago. Like this happened. What happened to Deuce? Where are we at now as we sit?
So to wrap the story of Deuce up, I did not have any more encounters with him. I had no more pictures. I'm headed out there awful soon to see if I can't kind of find some kind of sign, some kind of shed. Excuse me, something. Here comes the big heartbreak. As of right now, I do not have permission on the property anymore. That is not because of any kind of action on my part. I'm not 100% certain, but I kind of feel like my boss kind of caught wind of the deer that I was after somehow or another, maybe through a neighbor or something like that. But he kind of started throwing around the idea of me paying to lease this place and me coming up on this year. I'm trying to plan and pay for a wedding and, get ready to kind of, branch out, buy a house, do all these big things with my fiance and my future wife. And, leasing a place is just, one, I'm not really for paying to hunt a place. if you want to let me hunt a place, permission property, I'm down, but I'm not going to fork a whole bunch of cash over on top of me trying to, plan all of these big life events. And so I just tell him straight up, hey, I'm not going to be able to pay to hunt this place. If you want to let me hunt, I'll work for you when I can on the weekends. Just not going to happen. To wrap the season up, I lost permission of the property. I ended up killing a buck on this place. Not to jump over that. It was a mature deer. I think it was a 4-year-old, 140-inch 10-point. I was actually on a spot and stalk mission in the snow on that big 9-point that I called Slick. Had him at 40 yards, couldn't get him to play the game, give me a shot. And this deer walked up behind me, and I shot him at, you'll never guess, 25 yards.
10 See, hey, there we go, full circle.
And it wasn't it wasn't the bow. It wasn't my shot process. It was just my
you
range.
Bought a Garmin that a baby.
Not quite. But long story short, I lost permission on this property. My boss's family member, who's actually out of Arizona, he's a big mule deer guide out there. He actually paid a hefty sum to lease this property out for the next year. But here's the kicker, boys. Here's the kicker. I got the neighbor's phone number, and we're working on that one.
Mic drop. Let's go.
Yep, mic drop. Well, so, I tell you, Cameron, dude, you know what? There's a lot of guys out there that would have got their pocketbooks out, you know what I mean, and tried to sacrifice other things in their life, just because of the size of that deer. And kudos to you, man. Take care of the priorities in your life. It sounds like bright future ahead, to get married, house, all that. Where it's like, take care of those priorities. But guess what, dude? Use this last 2 years on this property and just build from that. Keep going somewhere else. Like there's another deer out there somewhere.
There'll be more deer. There'll be more deer.
Yep. There'll be more deer. Yep. And use those connections. Maybe that neighboring connection and whatnot. But hey, side note, I'm just guessing. If you're from Arizona, you're paying big money to go to Oklahoma to hunt a whitetail.
They don't exist here. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm just telling you, he knows about the deer.
No, 100%. He knows about the deer.
This lease is,
it's
he paid over $5,000. I mean, it's a big.
Yeah.
It's a relative. It's a relative.
Paying another relative $5,000.
I just hate to speculate. I like to see the good in people, but here's the bad thing is, like, I would really hate for him to pay that much money to come down and hunt this deer, and I slip in and kill him on the neighbors across the other side of the fence. You know what I mean? I've got too much history with this deer. And I work too hard. I'm a hardworking man, one way or another, at work or in the woods. I'm gonna figure it out. If I can, I'm gonna make it happen. If it doesn't, I will be very thankful for every opportunity and process and experience that I've gotten from this deer, and I will take it and I will apply it to others.
Well, dude, we're in your corner. We're in your corner for sure. Get that neighbor, get on that neighbor, go kill that thing so we can do another podcast about this, talking about how you just prevailed and you didn't spend any money to go kill this thing. Honestly, I mean, you're $5,000 richer, to be honest with you, in my opinion.
Right.
Yeah.
So Cameron Loving, dude, thank you very much for coming on and doing this. Hell of a story. You're an awesome dude. Thank you very much. Keep in touch for sure, because I want to know when you killed this slammer on the neighbors underneath the nose of the Arizona high roller.
Well, I'll do my best, boys.
Yeah.
I'll do
Thanks for coming on, buddy.
Yeah, I really appreciate it, guys. I'm a big fan and I really enjoyed it.
Alrighty.